the sovereign of the desolate sands. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226 Deception. The battle situation suddenly collapsed, and Yeoksu was filled with regret. He can cut 1,000,000 pounds of stone. What kind of state is this? He cursed in his heart, and was about to jump off the cliff with a lifting technique, but he saw Jugu running towards the mountain stronghold. Seeing this, Yeoksu gritted his teeth and followed. Since he had moved the Tiki, even if he was separated from him today, he would definitely be on the list of evil. If he left empty-handed, wouldn't it be a big loss? The two bandits rushed all the way, and after a few breaths, they had already rushed into Jugu's bedroom. In the corner of the room, two huge copper boxes were lined up in a row. Jugu strode forward, not caring that the key was in his clothes. He just reached out and pinched the locks one by one, and broke the locks with a casual twist. The box was opened, and it was full of valuables, bundles of copper coins, crushed silver utensils, rolled up calligraphy and paintings by famous artists. Some earrings and hairpins were still stained with blood. This is Jugu Bey's achievement in the first half of the year. It includes the savings of 4 local bandits and the assets of several wealthy families in Lezyang County. He was blocked on the mountain and couldn't leave because he hadn't cashed in these things yet. Hey, I've worked for nothing now. Jugu sighed angrily and roughly opened the sundries on the top of the box, revealing a bundle packed in advance in the bottom corner. It contained silver bills and high-purity gold leaves. There are more than 3,000 taels in this bundle. When we get out, I'll take 60 and you 40. He threw the bundle over his shoulder and said something to each other. After he finished speaking, the two of them looked at the box full of wealth for the last time, and then they heard the sound of a sharp weapon breaking wood. The wall separated by wooden boards was split in two. A silver dragon jumped in and was caught in Jugu's palm. "Come and die," Shi Yuanwei shouted in a low voice and thrust his sword. The friction between the steel and the flesh palm actually made a clanging sound. Jugu retreated quickly, hitting his back against the wall, deliberately overturning the wooden beam. The building collapsed, and Shi Yuanwei had to take shelter. The three of them saw the daylight. "Separate," Jugu shouted, and rushed into the wooden house on the north side first, destroying the wall and pillars without any care. Yeoksu turned to the south side, jumped up in one step, and flew straight to the roof. Shi Yuanwei couldn't split himself, and hesitated for a moment, then chose to chase Yeoksu, who was faster. Jugu saw this, tightened the bag on his shoulder, and walked faster. All of this fell into Hong Fan's eyes. 100 feet high, a man fell straight down and ran along the cliff. 10 steps away, the sand wind rolled after him, turning into 2 wings of armor. Jugu heard the whistling wind from above his head while running wildly. "The ghost is still there," he uttered from between his teeth and stopped abruptly. 10 feet away, the sand giant in golden armor stomped into the air, stepping out radioactive cracks. "Why are you so anxious?" Hong Fan was about to speak to delay, but when he looked up, he saw a figure like a stone pillar rushing towards him. "Anyone who stops me will die," Jugu shouted sternly. At this critical moment, his mind was clear. How could he be willing to waste time? Tai Sian pushed his muscles to the limit. Jugu transferred a trace of gold spirit to his right arm and punched out a heavy iron blue punch. Hong Fan stood firmly and pulled out a heavy tower shield from the ground. The fist and shield collided, and there was a bang, and a rain of sand spread all over the sky. Hong Fan slid back more than a meter and swallowed the blood in his throat. "What a force!" he shouted, and opened his hand to blast out a sand shot. The sand world was fully activated. The smoke and dust had not yet dispersed, and the golden armored giant behind it rose another foot higher, increasing its protection and strength to the limit. 300 kilograms of heavy armor, 800 degrees high temperature. "Come again, get out of here," the giant palm pressed down, raising a storm of desolate sand. The iron fist hit back, like a thunderbolt of anger. The air burst exploded in a circular shape. From the fist armor to the shoulder armor, the quicksand solidified in an instant, but it still couldn't use up all the strength, and more than 10 cracks were blown out. Hong Fan felt a sweetness in his throat, and locked his opponent's fist with a high-temperature burning sand. But it was useless. Jugu inhaled violently, no longer caring about his innate spiritual energy, and stomped his back foot suddenly on the ground. His hips twisted, and the dragon rose and fell. The heavy force gathered in each joint in turn, and finally gathered into an unparalleled strength at the top of his fist. Break. The fist armor was broken, and Hong Fan was forced to step aside. Jugu stepped forward again. Retreat. The top elbow hit the abdominal armor, tightening the quicksand and blasting the sand giant back. Lowered his shoulders and exhaled. Break. Jugu lowered his shoulders and collided, destroying the sand armor that had lost its elasticity at once. Hong Fan flew backwards, and for a while he was out of breath and could no longer respond. Just when Jugu saw the dawn, the enemies arrived. Master Lu Yun jumped 3 feet from the rooftop and used the Hunnitan palm to force him to return to defend. After a moment, the 4 members of the first team took their positions and surrounded Jugu in the center. Yaoxu was also forced back by Shi Yuanwei and his 4 companions. Fortunately you arrived, we almost couldn't hold him back, Hong Fan said, slowly moving his left wrist. Master Lu Yun returned a grateful smile. It's really a matter of time, he turned to Jugu, with a fierce look in his eyes. 3 days ago, did you think of this? I really didn't think of it, Jugu smiled evilly, with regret in his words. Otherwise, I would not only pull out the kid's little finger, but also twist off his head. The 4 members of the first team were furious. Brother Hong Fan, Brother Shi, please do us a favor and leave Nihuagu to us, Master Lu Yun asked loudly. I want to break his bones inch by inch. Since the start of the war, Hong Fan first cut a huge stone and then flew down to delay, which consumed a lot of time, so he nodded and followed. Shi Yuanwei did not refuse his colleague's face. Then we will be responsible for dealing with Jiao Sansi, he pointed at Yaoxu with the tip of his sword. The battle resumed, and it became 2-4-on-1, leaving Hong Fan alone to be on guard. Within 3 rounds, the 2 bandits in Hua village were in an absolute disadvantage. Yaoxu squandered his innate wood spirit energy, and shot out scarlet red silk, trying to catch his breath. Jugu only defended and did not attack. If he could not defend, he would selectively enter and persevere. After another 3 rounds, the 2 were injured in many places and were in a losing situation. Jugu used his knuckles to block the blade, and faced the Hunnitan ki that came from the air. This time, he threw the bag on his shoulder with his backhand. The cotton cloth exploded in his palm. Dozens of silver bills of varying denominations fluttered in the sky, and more than a dozen brilliant golden leaves flew through the wind. Since ancient times, money has moved people's hearts. In the 2 battle groups, 3 people were distracted and hesitant, and Jugu saw it. Especially since Gao Wenyan was standing right between him and Yaoxu. Capture that baby-faced man, Jugu shouted fiercely, and his momentum, which had been suppressed for a long time, suddenly burst out. Yaoxu immediately understood his old friend's plan. He deliberately led the battle circle and actively distributed gold and silver just to get a chance to capture a T cavalry alive, a fight of life and death. With this thought, Yaoxu's anger surged, and he actually took Shi Yuanwei's sword and sent out 3 claws at Gao Wenyan, forcing him to stagger and fly back. 5 meters away, Jugu laughed grimly, bursting out 12 times of his power, dyeing his skin blue-gray, taking Yan Yulin's continuous slashes alive, and pretending to pounce. Be careful, LV Yanxi exclaimed, as if he saw the scene 4 days ago reappear, and intercepted at full speed. At this moment, both battle groups shrank towards Gao Wenyan. This was exactly the scene Jugu had expected. He abandoned the battle group without looking back, accelerated at full speed towards the end of the village, and grabbed 200 lying silver notes from the air. Chapter 227 Lightning Flash. Everyone's emotions were in the void. Time slowed down at this moment, reflecting everyone's reaction. Jugu ran away, pulling away. Yaozu was stunned. Gao Wenyan was ashamed, but relieved. Master Lu Yun's eyes were bloodshot, and he turned to chase. Yan Yulin's veins were knotted, and he raised his knife to throw. But they were all powerless. At the critical moment, Shi Yuanwei knew that only he could save the situation. The divine travel code was fully activated, swallowing up all the fencing spiritual energy in Danshan. The clear and turbid changed, and the Yuan magnetic field was reversed. Among the 10 frozen figures, Shi Yuanwei stood out with a light step, like a fish jumping out of the water in the river of time. This is called lightning and lightning. The wind whistled. Jugu caught a glimpse of the pursuer with his peripheral vision. After he went north to Liangzhou, he heard about the name of Shi Yuanwei, the Red Ribbon Cavalry, fast speed, but mediocre strength. It was only 40 steps away from the cliff. With Tai Xian's protection, I won't die from a fall hundreds of meters. Zhu Gu thought, the dense forest under Qifan Mountain is like the sea. Even if Master Yuanzi comes, it will be like looking for a needle in a haystack to find him. I only need to take a sword and I can escape. He was filled with joy as he found a way out of the desperate situation. At this moment, everyone heard thunder. Shi Yuanwei turned into the wind and rushed to the limit. But the wind was not faster than thunder. From behind him, a bright yellow figure flew through the air and approached at high speed. Shi Yuanwei recognized that face and that sand knife. At this moment, he forgot the reason for his departure and just tried his best to speed up. But things did not go as planned. They were parallel for only a moment, and Hong Fan had already surpassed him. Zhu Gu also heard the approaching thunder, but he had no time to look back. The last scene he saw was the bright yellow long blade invading the light blue field of vision from the right. Then, he chopped it over his head. The sand knife collapsed. The head flew up from the ground, and the blood fountain followed closely behind, like a bright ruben. Hong Fan stood firmly under the steady deceleration of the sand flow under his feet. He looked back and saw that the headless corpse of Zhu Gu fell forward and rolled to the edge of the cliff more than 10 meters away, with the 200 lying silver notes in his hand. Shi Yuanwei stood with his long sword upside down, looking at the head that bounced up from the ground in a daze, and his face was full of frustration. The Tiki thought of the yellow light that had just crossed 5 meters, and they were all surprised, but also relieved. Finally, Yaoxu also came back to his senses and shook his head violently. At this time, I actually believed you. How could I be so naive? He glanced at Zhu Gu's skull and saw the remaining confused expression, and couldn't help laughing. Forget it. Yaoxu glanced at Hong Fan, tore off his sleeves casually, and tied the wound on his waist tightly with a few strokes. Even if I die, I won't go to Zinbiwei. He bent his fingers into claws, showing his intention to fight to the death. No one was talking nonsense this time. Except for Shi Yuanwei and Hong Fan, the remaining 70 riders came together and easily beat him to the point of being on the verge of collapse and bleeding. Before his death, Yaoxu took his last breath and shouted from a distance, Hong Fan, answer me, what is your cultivation level? 3 meridians, Hong Fan replied. Still lying, Yaoxu cursed, his clothes soaked in blood, his eyes wide open, and he died. The next day at noon, outside Lezhang County, the victorious bandit suppression team formed a long dragon on the official road. Dozens of carts were dragged at the end, filled with the spoils of Hua village. Hong Fan and other T-riders wore bright red cloud-patterned silk clothes, and rode in groups of 10 on horseback to one side. Before lunchtime, the city tower was already in sight. In front of the city gate, Commandant Mo stopped the army to reorganize, and rode over again, asking the T-riders to lead the team forward. Everyone would not refuse his kindness. Under the guidance of a special person, the Imperial Guards rode across the city gate bridge. The deep gate kept out the summer heat and provided shade. In the silence, Hong Fan, who was walking in the front, rode out. The skylight poured down, making his eyes white. When he instinctively covered his eyes with his hands, he heard a voice saying, "Here they come." Then, a loud noise crashed in, as if a fire was lit in his ear canals. The one in the front is the Imperial Guard who is suppressing bandits. Why is he so handsome? Have you married a wife? After all these words, there were joyous and unbridled gongs, drums, trumpets and suona. Hong Fan talked about music with Captain Mo. This is a small county town with a population of only 30,000. But at this moment, the long street connected to the city gate was crowded, as if everyone in the city had come. Amid the loud gongs and drums, the Imperial Guards went out of the city gate one by one. They tried to calm the frightened horses, and a smile appeared on their faces that they could not help but appear. The county magistrate of Yuzhang had been waiting by the road. After the parade, all the Imperial Guards and Commandant Mo were led to the county magistrate's office for a banquet. The dishes for lunch were not as good as those in the restaurants in Zhejiang. But compared with the food in the military camp for many days, it was already a delicacy. At the beginning of the way hour, the banquet was over, and the cups and plates were in a mess. Hong Fan and others were full of wine and food, and each received a 200 yuan gift. They led their horses, which had not yet eaten enough, and prepared to return. When they went out, it was the hot summer. Just as Hong Fan was about to get on his horse, he heard the sound of rocks hitting bones. He turned his head and saw that the heads of people who were chewing bones and biting blood were hung on high poles outside the yamen. shaking from the rocks. The stone throwers were several half-grown children who were sobbing and wiping tears, with hatred on their faces. Due to their torture, the heads of the two bandit leaders had been torn into pieces, revealing their white bones. Around the child, several men and women in mourning clothes knelt down in the street and kowtowed heavily when they saw the benefactors coming out. When Hong Fan saw this scene, his drunkenness disappeared instantly. Lu Yanqi and Shi Yuanwei also stopped smiling. No one came forward to help. Everyone silently mounted their horses, pulled the reins, and went straight out of the city. More than an hour later, the T-Riders traveled 100 miles away, leaving the people and things of Yujiang County and Qifan Mountain far behind. The horses slowed down and the atmosphere became more relaxed. Hong Fan drove the red flag in small steps and finally got out of the forest and broadened his vision. The road pointed diagonally to the northeast. Near the outside of the road, a large rose-red lake spread across the ground, reaching the end of the vision, and the shore could not be seen. And to the north of the lake, there was another mountain that crossed the ground, supporting the earth and the sky, like the ridge of the earth vein. Hong Fan looked up and saw the geese in the clouds in the sky and the water, and he was actually taken away from his breath for a moment. This place is north of Yujiang. He had glided over it at night 4 days ago, but he didn't notice such a magnificent scenery. P.S. Chapter 2 is only 1,800 words. I wanted to finish writing this part, but I got stuck at the end. I don't know when I can finish it. After thinking about it, I decided to post the previous ones first. Chapter 228. Wait. Brother Hongfen, the snowy ridge in the north is the highest mountain in the state, and its name is Febei. Master Lu Yun saw Hongfen stop his horse, drove his horse a few steps and introduced. The water in this lake is salty, and because of its red color, it is called Rose Sea. This water mirror reflects the mountain, which is a famous scenery on the top of the road in the south of Liangzhou. He pointed with his long hand, listing them all. The 10 riders chatted and walked, and left the forest road and merged into the wider official road. Not long after going forward, they heard the sound of horse hooves behind them. Hongfen looked back and saw an old man with white hair and beard and a ruddy face urging his horse to come over. I am honored, he smiled and bowed humbly on his horse. Please allow me to ask you a favor. What do you mean? Master Lu Yun straightened his back and asked. My family is a businessman. I came from Hongai City with some rice, grain and groceries, and I plan to go to Huai City in the north, he explained in detail and pointed back. Hongfan looked up and saw a team of carriages and horses following 2 or 3 miles away. We are a small family with a small business. We can't afford to hire a famous escort leader. We are scared all the way, the old man complained, and bowed. Today, I am lucky to meet you gentlemen on the same road. I would like to borrow your power. I wonder if my team can follow closer. Old man, we are strangers, Hongfan asked in surprise. How do you know we are not bad guys? The old man laughed when he heard it. Of course I don't know you gentlemen, but how can I not recognize the cloud pattern silk clothes you are wearing? If even the red ribbon imperial guards can become bad guys in this world, then where are the good people? After this was said, the 10 imperial guards were very happy. Okay, it's not a big deal. If you want to follow, just follow, but don't get too close, Master Lu Yun said, and seeing the old man's joy, he frowned and added another sentence. But I have said before that we are going to Zhejiang, which is only 200 miles away from you. Besides, if your caravan is slow, we can't delay the progress. Don't blame us if you can't catch up. Of course, the old man replied hurriedly. We can't catch up because we are slow. How can you blame us? He got the good news and rode back. The Tiki riders rode as usual, but they all slowed down their horses. Not long after, the caravan behind them caught up to 200 meters away, and sent a girl to bring tea, cakes and a lot of thanks. After they left, the team was quiet. But Hongfan's mood was not calmed down. For him, serving as a Tiki rider was just a simple deal. The horses' hooves were bumpy. Hongfan suddenly laughed. I didn't expect that the Tiki riders had such a reputation. He turned his eyes to Master Lu Yun and the others. I heard that Brother Lu and Brother Yuan both have high titles to inherit, and Brother Yan is the descendant of Marcus Ruyan, and each of them has a second-grade martial arts inheritance in their family. As soon as these words came out, Master Lu Yun and Yuan Zusong were both excited, holding their heads high and nodding. Then there is one thing I don't understand. Hongfan glanced at Yuan Zusong's severed little finger and asked. Zijing is a metropolis with millions of people and the prosperity of Liangzhou. Apart from being a tiki, is there no other way to make a living with martial arts? Of course there are, and there are many, Master Lu Yun replied immediately. Taking money to do things, serving others, and being driven by the power of the sect, with the cultivation of the Hunran realm, what business can't you do? Yes, Hong Fan nodded repeatedly, and for some reason he thought of Li Hemming. In this case, as children of aristocratic families, why do you have to do this hard job of riding a horse with a sword in hand? He asked again, but choked a few people. After a long while, Master Lu Yun replied. If someone else were to ask this question, it would definitely be an insult. He forced a smile, his mouth corners lowered, as if recalling a bad memory. To be honest, the children of high-ranking families all look down on the tiki. Some mean ones even tease us by calling us the dogs of the Zhao family. If our families had not fallen into poverty, I think we would not have given up our dignity and used this as a stepping stone to advance. But over the past few years, I have a different idea. Master Lu Yun paused when he said this. There was another silence in the team. The others were waiting for him to continue. Finally, Master Lu Yun made up his mind and went all out. Now I think that those other ways are nothing more than private calculations and profit-seeking actions. Only our tiki, only this Hangwu Academy under the jurisdiction of the mountain chief, cares about justice, he said in a hurry, and was inexplicably embarrassed and looked away. In the distance, the Rose Sea was like a mirror, with Phoebe Mountain hanging upside down in it. At this time, Hong Fan suddenly said, "This is what a gentleman says." Upon hearing this, Master Lu Yun looked at him for a moment, and finally his eyebrows were fully relaxed. "How dare you compare yourself to a gentleman?" He shook his head and laughed, his voice gradually becoming more and more turbulent. "The military merits given by the academy are stingy, and I often complain about it, but as a tiki, I have gone through the mountains of swords and seas of fire on the evil list. Even if I die, it has its own weight," Master Lu Yun said, clenching his fists, causing the cloud-patterned silk clothes to flutter. At this time, a flock of geese flew across the sky, and a few long cries were heard. Between heaven and earth, there are lakes leaning against mountains, roads around lakes, and people along roads. The snow-capped ridges of Phoebe Mountain are shrouded in sunlight, giving off a glittering glow, as if covered with a layer of gold foil. All the destinations of the road point to farewell. The next day, early in the morning, the morning sun rose slowly, and we bid farewell to Hazy, where we stayed overnight. The caravan turned to the northwest and bid farewell to the tiki who were traveling with us. The 10 people had breakfast at the official post station, and galloped along the road at full speed. In a blink of an eye, it was afternoon. After a day of galloping, the horses were tired. Shi Yuanwei, Lu Yanqi and others sympathized with their mounts and chose to dismount and walk. Hong Fan would not sit on the horse alone, but let Honky take advantage of it. It's still 300 miles to Zijing. Shi Yuanwei held the horse with one hand and pointed with the other hand. The town of Liamping is on the side of the road ahead. There is an inn called K Pingen that runs a business of traveling merchants. The food and accommodation are not bad. How about staying here overnight? Yan Yulin suggested. Before everyone could reply, Honky had already snorted and put his long face to Hong Fan's shoulder. It probably meant tired and hungry, no strength, want to rest. Since they were not in a hurry, the 10 people went into the town and went to the inn. The inn was facing the street and had only 2 floors. The large yard was full of large carts, and a large flag with the word Mang was leaning against the side of the car. Several merchants were busy covering their goods with tarpaulins while talking and laughing loudly, until they saw 10 knights in red clothes coming in. Then they stopped talking. Hong Fan went straight into the store. There were no other guests in the lobby, and several wooden tables and chairs were broken on the ground and had not been cleaned up yet. He called the shopkeeper to inquire, but was told that the room was full. Everyone had to continue on their way. Going north out of Liamping town, a stream flows along the official road. On the high ground beside the stream, a caravan of dozens of people had just set up camp. Hong Fan glanced casually, mounted his horse and was about to hurry on, but heard a familiar voice calling from the slope. "Brother Fan, P.S. My condition is particularly bad, and I am always struggling between the lines." I wrote and deleted a few lines of dialogue, and reworked them several times but still couldn't make them smooth. There's only this chapter today. Chapter 229 Hot Mouth. Honky felt a bit in his mouth tighten and stopped immediately. "Is this, Brother Hong, Hong Fan looked at him and recognized him immediately. How can it be such a coincidence? He turned over and dismounted, with an unstoppable smile on his face. I also thought I was wrong, Jingsha replied, rushing down the slope. Compared with half a year ago, his temperament has become much more stable, but the honesty between his eyebrows and eyes has not changed. This time I am leading the team from Jinhei to Hongai in the south, bringing some furs and stenches, Jingsha said, and carefully looked at the bright red military uniform on Hong Fan, and couldn't help but praise it. Is this the silk uniform of the Tiki? The bright red is a noble color, it really suits you, he patted Hong Fan's arm heavily. As soon as they touched, the latter felt a subtle difference in the strength. Have you entered the state of unity? Hong Fan asked. Yes, it happened in May, so this time I can lead the team alone, Jingsha smiled back. It is a rare happy event to meet an old friend in a foreign land. We are about to set up camp and prepare a meal. If you don't mind, why don't you have some tea and food before leaving? He asked. Hong Fan looked at the others with an inquiring look. No one objected to his meaning. The main tent of the Chi family caravan was a four-arbor style, shaped like a palace. There were 5 ridges on the top and 4 slopes. Many horizontal and vertical round wooden tent poles were firmly connected by 3 or 4-legged copper tent structures, supporting a space of more than 20 square meters. Fragrant agar wood was lit in the corner, and curling smoke rose to drive away mosquitoes and flies. At the entrance of the tent, the thin silk curtain used in summer let in a little sunlight. Everyone sat cross-legged beside the long table. We are going to Kifin Mountain to suppress bandits. Hong Fan took a sip of tea and said. Now that things are settled, we will return to Zhaijing. Speaking of which, the leader of the bandits is called Zhu Gu, and he is on the evil list. Have you ever heard of him, Brother Hong? So it's Zhu Gu? His name is well known among my merchants. Jingsha personally served tea to everyone and said. He used to be entrenched in Yongnian City, Huaiyang State. 2 or 3 years ago, when the trade route to the south was still smooth, people passing by had to prepare a toll for him. I didn't expect that such a notorious villain would fall into your hands this time, he praised and sighed. It's a pity that Huaiyang State is now in a state where people are allowed to enter but not leave. We can only go to Hongai City this time. Just as the tent was silent, footsteps were heard outside. The curtain at the door was lifted, and 2 young men and women came in. Brother, are there guests? A gentle and timid female voice asked in surprise. Hong Fan turned his head and found that he recognized both of them. Is it Yao and Xinmu? Yao is Jingsha's biological sister, and Xinmu is his cousin. So it's the second young master. Xinmu is very surprised and bowed. Yao also followed suit. It just so happened that Brother Fan and his colleagues passed by. You have known each other for a long time. Come and sit down, Jingsha greeted them. When the two sat down, they each had their own strangeness. Xinmu's movements were slightly uncoordinated, as if he was in pain. Yao had just washed her face, and there were still drops of water on her temples. Her smile was forced, and her eyes were red and swollen. It was obvious that she had just cried. What happened? Hong Fan asked. The tent was silent for a moment. It's just a little thing, nothing, Jingsha smiled. Seeing that he was unwilling to say, Hong Fan had no intention of investigating. But at this time, Xinmu, who was already angry, finally couldn't stand it anymore. It's nothing, I was just bullied. What can't be said in front of the second young master? He lowered his voice and said, but everyone in the tent could hear it clearly. How did you get bullied? Tell me, Hong Fan looked at him. Just half an hour ago, the guests in the town were safe, Xinmu said, clenching his fists. We had agreed with the shopkeeper and had already stopped the cart to unload the horses, but the Meng family's caravan from Huaiyang City arrived again. Both families had many carriages and horses, and the inn didn't have enough space, so a conflict arose. The reason is clear, but the Meng family was arrogant and insisted that we give in. In the end, we were so angry that we fought with them. He glanced at Jingsha and his voice dropped. Anyway, I'm not their opponent, and my eldest brother is unwilling to fight, so we can only camp outside the town. Hong Fan nodded slightly, indicating that he understood. The Meng family in Huaiyang City is well known in Liangzhou, and its momentum is no less than that of the Tongguang Palace family in its heyday. The huoqi pill that Hong Fan tried to buy but failed at the Jiaotong Hall last year was produced by this family. I understand. Why is you crying? Hong Fan asked again. Jingsha was a little embarrassed. The Meng family got the upper hand and said some frivolous words, he replied in a hoarse voice. In fact, there is no Hunrin in their team. If I take action, I am sure, at this point, Chi Xin Kai's face was full of blood. But in the end, it turned to be sad. It's just that my clan is now declining. Before I came out, the elders repeatedly told me to be more tolerant. In short, I am useless as a brother and can't protect her. Chi Yu shook her head repeatedly after hearing this, and couldn't help crying again. There was a tap sound in the tent. It was Hong Fan who pressed the corners of his mouth and knocked on the long table with his knuckles. Seeing this, Master Lu Yun suddenly asked, "Brother Hong Fan, this Miss Yu seems to be very close to you." This was the first time he saw Hong Fan with obvious anger since they met. The latter did not answer immediately, but looked at Chi Xin first. "Hunger, did you hear that my Uncle Pan left for Jinhei 7 days ago?" Hong Fan asked. Chi Xin shook his head. The Chi family caravan had already left Jinhei 7 days ago. But he knew what the other party was asking. The matter between Shir and Yiyu has been settled, and it's just a matter of following the routine, Chi Xin explained. That's why she insisted on going out with me to see the world this time. Chi Yiyu blushed. I understand. Hong Fan nodded and turned to Master Lu Yun. Brother Lu, this Miss Yiyu is half my sister-in-law, Chi Yiyu exclaimed when he heard this, and her chin shrank to her chest. The tears on her round face immediately disappeared and she forgot her grievances. I know, Master Lu Yun replied with 3 words. Like cutting 3 swords. He drank the tea in one gulp and paused on the table. Excuse me for a moment. After saying that, the 5 people in the first team got up and left the tent together. What is this? Chi Xin was a little confused. He was somewhat aware of what Master Lu Yun and the others were going to do, but he was not quite sure. The Huai Meng family had 3 Xianchans in one family, and they were the overlords of the city. The highest level of the Jinhei Chi family was the communication between heaven and man, and the next generation was obviously unable to keep up with the pace of the Hong family. Brother Chi, are you worried that it is not appropriate? Shi Yuan Wei blew a mouthful of boiling hot tea and asked. Yes, a little, Chi Xin admitted honestly. The first team's work is indeed not appropriate, Shi Yuan Wei immediately said to his teammates. In this case, you also go and take a look. At this moment, 3 more Tiki opened the tent and came out. This, Chi Xin looked at Hong Fan. His first thought before was trepidation, but at this moment, his second thought was why use a butcher knife to cut a chicken? The Chishao Tiki started from the Hunrin realm, and everyone knew it even on the border of Jinhei. Don't worry, Brother Hong, Hong Fan smiled back. I am now a guest of the Emperor, and I specialize in handling the injustices in the world. Drink tea. He raised his glass to indicate. Chi Xin had no choice but to accompany him, drank it all, and then grinned. As a warrior in the Hunrin realm, he actually felt that the tea in the cup was quite hot. P.S. I took a sleeping pill last night and slept until 10 in the morning. I felt okay. It's just strange that I was completely out of the writing state today. I usually think about writing when I walk, go out for dinner, and go to bed. Only when I play games and the threads are full, my mind can be empty for a while. But when I woke up today, I suddenly lost myself in the story. It was as if the Lord of the Desert was not my book, and Hong Fan and the others had all moved out of my mind. In the afternoon, I tried to load the cleared information back into the memory. It's quite strange. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230, Standing Out. The wind passed outside the tent, disturbing the curtains from time to time. Chi Xin and Chi Xingmu were accompanying each other at the table. After a few cups of hot tea, they felt like there was a fire burning under their buttocks, and it became increasingly difficult to sit still. But Hong Fan and Shi Yuan Wei just chatted and laughed casually, unmoved by the wind. Several plates of snacks were quickly finished. Almost done, Hong Fan clapped his hands and smiled. Go and see K Pingen, he asked. Okay, before Chi Xin could reply, his cousin had already taken over and jumped up like a rabbit. A group of 5 people left the tent and took 2 managers from the caravan with them, and went to the town together. The air in K Pingen's yard was particularly scorching. The Meng family has always been rampant in Liangzhou and has a very bad temper. But at this moment, more than a dozen guys in the caravan were lying on the ground. The 4 Guotong realm leaders were all injured, grimacing and not daring to get up again. In the main hall, 8 red-ribboned imperial guardsmen sat on horses and with golden swords, drinking tea in the shade. The innkeeper and the waiter were by their side, wanting to persuade them to make peace, but they didn't even have the courage to speak out. The scorching sun was like torture. Just when the Meng family members were about to give up, 7 people strolled in from outside the courtyard. At this time, Master Lu Yun, who had not spoken a word since entering the door, spoke. "The person in charge is here." He raised his chin and pointed at Hong Fan, who entered the courtyard. "If you have anything to say, you can talk to him now." However, at this time, the Meng family members who were beaten up by the 8 imperial guards and felt wronged were speechless. They all recognized the Qi brothers and Qi Yayu who followed behind Hong Fan. It was not difficult to guess the whole story. "I am Meng Zhiang." The leader of the Meng family covered his chest, leaned against the wheel and straightened his back, with an incredible tone. "Are you here to stand up for the Jinhaiqi family?" He has the peak of Guotong cultivation, and he is always confident when he goes out. But he just fought with Yan Yulin, the youngest of the 8 people, and he didn't even go 2 moves. How can he still be arrogant now? "It seems that you also know right from wrong," Hong Fan replied, walked into the lobby, and sat down on the bench in the middle. "It's not a big deal. Young people are hot-tempered in hot weather. It's normal to fight when you go out. It's just that bullying a little girl is despicable. You should apologize and give up the place, and let it go," he persuaded with a smile. After hearing this, the leader of the Meng family remained silent, but the youngest boy next to him could no longer control his temper. "Do you know which family you are messing with?" After this, the whole place was silent. After half a breath, Shi Yuanwei, who was leaning against a courtyard wall with his arms folded, was the first to lose his temper and laughed. And it seemed like a chain reaction in the backyard. The guards laughed. Even Hong Fan couldn't help but bow his head and smile. "What are you laughing at?" Seeing this, the Meng family boy's face flushed instantly, and his blood was aroused, almost fainting. "I know which family you are from. I still recognize the word Meng hanging on the flagpole." Hong Fan suppressed his smile and explained seriously. "The Huai Meng family, one family has 3 innates, who in Liangzhou doesn't know, but we are the guards of the Martial Arts Academy, and ordinary innate masters can't scare us," he replied sincerely. "Don't talk nonsense. Are there some extraordinary innates?" The boy raised his eyebrows and said. "Of course there are." It was Shi Yuanwei who interrupted. "Do you recognize this cloud pattern silk dress?" He straightened up. His eyes were fixed, like a spear piercing straight. "In our eyes, there is only one kind of extraordinary innate, that is, those who dare to be listed on the evil list, the 3 in your family. Do you dare?" This sentence was said lightly, without any intense emotion. But in the ears of the Meng family boy, these words have a deep meaning, as if he is confronting some indescribable behemoth. He felt an inexplicable fear. "Our master is a noble, a general of 600 stones," the boy clenched his fist and said loudly, but his teeth were chattering. This word instantly made Master Lu Yun excited. "General of the country," he said loudly, blowing a mouthful of tea, pretending to be surprised. "Who is not?" Master Lu Yun sipped the tea loudly, making a slurping sound. "I will succeed the position of general of the country, which is only 400 stones higher than your master." After he finished speaking, he looked at Yuan Zusong. The latter also spoke leisurely. "My family is not so good. My father is a general of the country, which is only 200 stones higher than your master." Then, Lun Yuan looked at Yan Yulin at the same time. The latter didn't want to speak, but when he saw the expectant eyes of his 2 colleagues, he had to answer. "The Yan family of Zijing, our ancestors were granted the title of Marquess of Ruang for their meritorious service." Hearing this, Lun Yuan breathed a sigh of relief with satisfaction. The young man of the Meng family finally stopped. "Do you have anything else to say?" Hong Fan asked again. Everyone looked at Meng Zhiang. Nothing to say, he had to speak. "This is to apologize to you." The Meng family struggled to get up and bowed deeply to the hall. Hong Fan shook his head and pointed at Qi Xinqi and others. The Meng family was indignant, but they could only do as they were told. The situation was stronger than the people, and Meng Zhiang didn't even dare to ask the names of Hong Fan and others, for fear of exacerbating the situation. After the bow, it was Qi Zimu's turn to be flushed. "Humph, it's not just an apology, the room must be vacated." he said loudly. Of course, Meng Zhiang glanced at him and replied stiffly. Pack your things quickly, we'll set up camp outside the town. Seeing that the conflict was over, the shopkeeper hurried to the hall to return the room fee, but was stopped. Shopkeeper, you don't have to return the room fee, just consider it an apology to the chief family. Meng Zhiang finished speaking, picked up the sword scattered on the ground, stopped talking, and loaded the cart himself. Not long after, the Meng family packed up their things and lined up to go out. Qi Xinmu ran back to the town in 2 steps to call his team back. Qi Xinchi, on the contrary, became more and more worried. Hong Fan saw it and understood it in his heart. He was able to deal with the Meng family so casually because he had 3 reasons. The first reason was that he was a techie and that his side was in the right. The second reason was that although his personal reputation in Zhejiang was not prominent, he already had several connections and was quite powerful. The third reason was that the Huang family had 2 martial arts seeds, him and Hong Xing, in the contemporary era, and it was almost inevitable that they would break into the innate realm within a few years. In this way, offending a caravan of the Meng family is just a small matter. However, the Qi family is weak, and even Qi Xinchi, the most talented of this generation, is just so-so. It is clear that no one can break into the Xiantian realm within 10 years. If you are not strong enough, you will naturally encounter difficulties everywhere. If you are not confident enough, you will inevitably look ahead and behind. So, Hong Fan stood up and walked out of the door of Kipingin courtyard quickly. Brother Meng, please stop, he called Meng Zhiang. Dozens of people from the Meng family looked back. Hong Fan glanced at everyone one by one and bowed from a distance. Today, we have formed a cause and effect, but I haven't told Brother Meng my name yet. I am Hong Fan, and I am honored to be the Red Ribbon Tiki of Liangshao. If you don't agree, you can come to the Zhejiang Zhangwu Academy to find me. I will be waiting for you at any time. Meng Zhiang did not reply, but just bowed hastily and was about to leave. He had not walked a few steps when he heard 2 voices chasing him from behind. It's not just my brother Hong Fan who is waiting for you. I am Master Lu Yun of the Zhejiang Lu family. Don't forget it, lightning and lightning, Shi Yuan Wei. This time the Meng family just quickened their pace and never looked back. P.S. The Dahua title system was modified by the author himself. The Ming dynasty listed 5 ranks of nobility to confer titles on meritorious officials and relatives. In June of the 3rd year of Hongwu, an imperial edict was issued, 5 ranks of honorary nobility. The 1st rank Duke and County Duke, the 1st rank County Marquess, the 2nd rank County Earl, the 3rd rank County Earl, the 4th rank County Son, and the 5th rank County Man. Later, the Viscount and Baron were abolished, leaving only the Duke, Marquess, and Earl titles. Because the ranks of meritorious officials in the Ming dynasty were very high and not very convenient to use, I transferred the titles of the royal family, such as the general guard in the country, and mixed them up. Chapter 231 Chicken Soup. 3 days later, on June 25th, in Zhejiang Prefecture, the martial arts training ground was already filled with the setting sun. Everyone washed up by the well in the backyard, passed by the thousands of flying flowers on the sidewalk, and sat down in the main hall. On the round table, the cold dishes were already laid out. Hong Fan, as the host, and Wu Hongling sat on the left and right. I learned that Yuan Zusong was captured, and I was worried when I set out on the road, he said, drinking a sip of sour plum juice. So I deliberately took an extra rest on the way to ensure that I had basic combat power when I arrived. Hong Fan put down the cup and smacked his lips, thinking that the drink tasted too soft. So he smiled flatteringly at Wu Ruai. The latter glanced at him, took the cup over, and gently grasped it with 5 fingers, and then covered the porcelain cup with frost. Sure enough, when I arrived at Kifan Mountain, Master Lu Yun and others were surrounded, biting blood and cutting through Yuan Zusong's calf with 1 finger. Hong Fan took the cup back and drank another sip, raising his eyebrows in beauty. That Zhugu is indeed on the evil list. His one-on-one combat ability is much stronger than mine. Fortunately, they didn't know my killing method that allows flying in the state of completeness. They were frightened by my pretense and brought the first team out. Hearing this, Bai Jiasi couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Now it sounds simple to you, but I don't know how dangerous it was at that time. He drank the sour plum juice in the cup in 1 gulp, and felt it was not good, so he looked across the table pitifully. Wu Ruai didn't waste any words, and simply stood up to ice the whole pot of sour soup. Bai Jiasi was overjoyed and hurriedly poured another cup. Hong Fan, I heard that you got 60 military merits this time. He took a sip and continued to ask. It's 60, that's right, Hong Fan nodded. Because the first team didn't perform well, the last person only got half of the military merits, 20 points. The third team will be calculated according to the normal mission, 40 points per person. I got 60 points because I saved Yuan Zusong. Bai Jiasi was extremely envious when he heard it. A full 60 points, equivalent to 2 normal missions. Alice, last year each of us only got 60 military merits, and you've only been here for 3 months, and you've already got 100. It's a pity that General Manager Jian didn't want us to go. He sighed, and felt that the iced sour plum soup had lost its taste. Zhan Yuanzi shook his head repeatedly. Military merits have never been picked up for nothing. If I were General Manager Jian, I would also choose Shi Yuan Wei and the others. They are not mediocre at chewing bones and biting blood. If we were to go, it might not be so appropriate. No one likes to hear ugly words. But Wu Ruiyi and Bai Jiasi knew that their teammates were right, so they had to eat their dishes in silence. At this time, footsteps were heard outside the door. It was Aunt Liu who came in with a porcelain basin and a stack of small bowls. The chicken soup is ready. It has been simmered on low heat for an hour. She placed the basin on the center of the table and opened the lid. The rich aroma suddenly burst out, making the air in the hall seem to be stained with a different color. Bai Jiasi's Adam's apple rolled, and he immediately forgot about Kifeng Mountain. I'll serve you some soup, Aunt Liu smiled, serving a bowl to Hong Fan first, which was then passed to Wu Hongling. Soon, everyone had a bowl in front of them. Aunt Liu was not in a hurry to return to the kitchen, but waited by the table. Everyone drank the soup, and except for Hong Fan, everyone was shocked by the delicious taste. How can it be so delicious? Wu Ruiyi muttered, and quickly took another sip despite the heat, and then exhaled a frosty breath from her mouth. This is the best chicken soup I've ever had. Auntie is really good at cooking. She put down the bowl and praised loudly, her ponytail and eyebrows dancing. Alice, it's not my cooking. Aunt Liu was humble when she heard this, but her face was full of smiles. In fact, it's because the ingredients in the soup are good. The chicken is raised at home, and there is also the best snow skirt fairy in it. Snow skirt fairy, is it bamboo fungus? Wu Ruiyi was very surprised. My family used to cook bamboo fungus stewed chicken, but shouldn't it have a soapy smell? When she said this, Aunt Liu became interested. The cap and root of bamboo fungus have a soapy smell, so these 2 parts should be cut off before putting them in the pot, and only the stems should be eaten. Wu Ruiyi opened her mouth and instinctively looked at her mother. Ah, Wu Hongling blushed when she saw her. I know, I just like that taste. She stroked the hair on her cheek and said confidently. I think the chicken soup I made is not bad, right? Wu Hongling glared at her daughter and looked at Bai Jiasi. Compared with what I made today, I think they have their own merits. The latter spit out a piece of chicken bone and replied seriously. Zhan Yuanzi looked at her nose and heart, and calmly added another bowl for himself. Aunt Liu was worried about Tao Hongliu LV, so she went back to the kitchen to continue cooking. Everyone was busy drinking soup, except Wu Hongling, who was very depressed, so the chicken bones on her plate were piled the highest. When they had finished most of the dinner, Tang Dajia entered the yard, leading a servant. Master, there is a man delivering the invitation outside, and he said he must deliver it to you, he said outside the door. Hong Fan nodded to Wu Hongling, got up and went out. The servant waiting in the yard looked only 16 or 17 years old, wearing a silk robe that didn't fit him well, but a piece of linen was exposed under the collar. I came from the Lu mansion and was ordered by my young general to deliver the invitation to Master Hong. He bowed deeply and spoke in a clear voice. Hong Fan had never heard of the young general of the Lu mansion. When he took the invitation and looked at the signature, he found that it was Master Lu Yun. The servant completed his mission and was rewarded with a silver coin, and left happily. Hong Fan read the invitation and returned to the table. You definitely can't guess what it is, he smiled and gently slapped the invitation wrapped in red silk on the table. Master Lu Yun invited our whole team to have dinner at Mingyu Tower to thank me for saving Yuan Zusong. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Mingyu Tower? That's the most luxurious place for fireworks in the entire Zhejiang, a veritable den of money spending, Bai Jiasi said in surprise. A place for fireworks? You know so much about it, but have you ever been there? Hong Fan asked curiously. He had heard about the chef of Mingyu Tower from Zhuangli, but he had never been there himself. I can barely afford to buy 2 marrow cleansing pills on weekdays. How can I afford this? Bai Jiasi blushed and complained when his teammates and C looked at him. I practiced the dog Miju and my nose is sensitive, but I'm short of money, so I work part-time as a perfume tester at the Bai Huapo in the city. C also knows about this. The Bai Huapo he mentioned is the most famous perfume shop in Zhejiang City, and Hong Fan has also heard about it. The most expensive rose water and flower perfume sold in the store cost 7 or 8 taels of silver per small bottle. Even the less well-off families usually buy less, Bai Jiasi continued. Only the girls from Mingayu Tower don't even ask the price when they come to buy. Speaking of which, on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month, the Kikyo Festival, Mingayu Tower also holds a regular flower appreciation party. The banquet that night is several times more expensive than usual. P.S. I mentioned a few days ago that writing is difficult. Many readers think that it is difficult to figure out the words, but it is not. Describing scenes and making some rhetoric are relatively easy operations for me. It often takes little time to complete them in one go. The real difficulty and the ability to establish the characters are the choices they make and the words they say in the situation. Good writing does not need any fancy words. Just a well-placed dialogue can make it shine through the paper, but it takes a lot of time to figure out that sentence. As for the words, for old authors, it is the least worth mentioning thing. Chapter 232 Mingayu Tower. A flower appreciation party is held during the Kikyo Festival, Hong Fan exclaimed. I saw it written on the invitation. It's on the night of the 7th day of the 7th month. He opened the invitation to confirm, and the black words on the red paper were indeed correct. So what does this flower appreciation party mean? After hearing Hong Fan's question, Wu Hongling smiled faintly. No matter how elegant Mingayu Tower is, it is still a brothel. What do you mean? She crossed her arms. The flower appreciation party is an elegant term. In fact, the 3 largest brothels in Zhejiang City each nominate one person to compete for the head of the party. In the mouths of the people, it is the most popular flower. Her tone was slightly disdainful. I'm surprised why the surname Lu is so generous, Bai Jiasi said. He usually pretends to be generous when he is poor, and everyone knows that he has no money. We have known each other for a long time, and I have never seen him treat us to drink. This time he is so generous. I remember that the lowest price for the flower appreciation party last year was 100 taels of silver. He wondered. A banquet of 100 strings of cash is equivalent to eating more than 10 acres of good farmland. Zhan Yuanzi scratched his head, Wu Ruai stared, and even Hong Fan was a little surprised at the price. But he naturally knew the reason why Master Lu Yun suddenly became so bold. On Kifeng Mountain, the last 3,000 taels of property scattered by chewing bones were privately divided by 10 tiki, and each of them got 300. Later, the Yuxiang area got the 3 or 4,000 taels of property in Woi as a village, and each person was given 200 in the name of the coming and going ceremony. Adding the two together, Master Lu Yun had 500 taels in his account. Now spending 100 taels as a token of appreciation is completely within his affordability. I have never liked fireworks places, but Master Lu Yun sent an invitation so solemnly, so naturally I can't refuse his face, Hong Fan said, looking at several teammates. So are you going to this banquet of 100 strings of cash? This question touched the soul. Since someone is paying the bill, wouldn't it be stupid if I didn't go? Bai Jiasi bravely said first, but he didn't dare to look at Sai. I have never been interested in women, but the roasted deer tendons and fried phoenix tongues in Mingayu Tower are famous dishes in Zhejiang. It is said that the flower tasting party offers 10-year-old pear blossoms. If I have this opportunity, I should go and taste them, then I will go and take a look too. Zhan Yuanzi asked a question, and it was unknown who he hoped to answer. Women have always been like clouds to me, but I heard that Mingayu Tower is beautiful with carved railings and jade bricks. If I can see it with my own eyes, I can probably make some good paintings. Wu Hongling did not move until then. So Wu Ruai became bolder. Is it really that great? She blinked. Anyway, I can't be interested in women. How about I go with you? Just when Wu Ruai was halfway through her words, she suddenly felt a chill. She turned her head and found that her mother was staring at her coldly. Ah, I was joking, Wu Ruai said immediately, her voice floating. Mom, don't get me wrong, Wu Hongling snorted unhappily when she heard that. Ruai can't go, and I can't control the 3 of you. As a man, if you ask, you're not interested in women, and if you ask, you want to go to a brothel, what can you do? She shook her head and poured herself another bowl of chicken soup. The moon climbed to the top of the tree, and most of the food was eaten. Several people went to the kitchen to thank Aunt Liu and Tao Hongliu, and then took a walk in the side garden of Chori Mansion. Before the show was over, Zhan Yuanzi came to Hongfan. I have something I want to ask you for help. Can you lend me an empty room to temporarily store some things? He said, quite embarrassed. Of course, I don't have anything else, but I have a lot of empty rooms, Hongfan replied. What do you want to put? Just some paintings that have not been sold and accumulated, Zhan Yuanzi replied. The lease of my house is about to expire, and the landlord wants to raise the rent by 20%, so I plan to find a new place to live, and I have to move my things out first. Then isn't that a waste of time? Hongfan laughed when he heard this. There are still more than a dozen empty rooms in my Chori mansion. Why are you looking for one outside? Just move in. Zhan Yuanzi instinctively wanted to refuse. At this time, everyone was passing by the pavilion by the pool. The waves reflected the moon, and the wind was blowing. Endless summer swayed from time to time, and a few drops of blue and green tears were shed. Zhan Yuanzi glanced at this scene, but he couldn't say no. Then it settled. Hongfan patted him on the shoulder. Don't talk about the rent. After you move in, choose some paintings you are proud of and decorate the empty space in the mansion, and we will be even. Zhan Yuanzi's heart warmed, and he finally nodded heavily. The rent saved every year was not a small amount for him. Seeing this, Bai Jiasi also came over eagerly. Hongfan naturally understood what he was thinking. If you are willing, you can also return the rented house and move in. Let's make it clear first. Every month, the family's meal money must be paid to Aunt Liu in time. She is shy and dare not ask you for the bill. Bai Jiasi was delighted and agreed. After the matter was settled, there was no more room for discussion, and everyone went home. The next day, Zhan and Bai moved in with their belongings. With the latter, there were 2 cat slaves, one orange and one white, who were so happy that they smiled all day long and tried to please them with dried fish. 10 days passed in a blink of an eye. On the 7th day of the 7th month, it was the Kikyo festival. When the lights were just lit, Hongfan and Zhan Bai left the mansion, crossed the Xianzhen Bridge, and walked along the Yao River to the north of Zhaijing City. When they turned around the entrance of Wangjiang Lane, the setting sun had been blocked by the city wall. Under the bright moon, the shape of Mingyu Tower appeared. The building was 8 stories high and rose 12 feet high, with green tiles, red pillars, red doors and colorful windows. Pedestrians looked up at the splendor, saw the eaves and heard the roar of the river, and felt dizzy. This is the tallest and most gorgeous building I have ever seen in Liangzhou. Hongfan stopped and sighed. He turned his eyes to look at the pedestrians on the street, and all he saw were silks and satins, hanging gold and purple. There are many luxurious buildings along the river in the long alley. The river breeze brought some gentle tunes and light fragrance. But there was no smoky atmosphere in the Yanliu Lane of Jinhe City, where heavily made-up women solicited on the street. With this building, it compares to Honggai City. Bai Jiasi also widened his eyes. I have been in Zhaijing for a long time. Even if I took a walk in the past, I avoided this Wangjiang Lane. Old Zhan, have you been here before? He asked casually, but he didn't hear a reply, but found that Zhan Yuanzi's eyes were straight, as if he wanted to imprint the scenery in front of him into his mind. With this scene, the answer is obvious. It took several breaths for Zhan Yuanzi to breathe a sigh of relief and come to his senses. It's time, let's go, Hongfan said, and he went up the white marble steps first. Zhan Yuanzi followed closely behind. Only Bai Jiasi hesitated a little, and adjusted his silk shirt back and forth. Seeing that his 2 companions were getting farther away, he hurried to catch up. There were 18 steps of jade, and behind them were bright red double doors. In front of the door were 3 pairs of male and female attendants, all of whom were of superior appearance. Just as Hongfan was about to go up and talk, he heard the sound of horse whips coming from behind the long street. Everyone turned around and saw a gorgeous carriage pulled by 4 jade horses, driving the crowd all the way and galloping towards it, slowly stopping in front of the steps. Chapter 233 Aristocratic Family. The carriage stopped in front of the building. The 3 riders following the carriage stopped at the same time. The knights rolled off their saddles and walked quickly to the front of the carriage. The first one lifted the curtain, the second one spread the blanket. As for the third one, he knelt in front of the carriage and curled up into a footrest. Everything was done quickly and silently. In Hongfan's eyes, it was like a pantomime that had been rehearsed countless times. The owner of the carriage came out at this time, and the noise in the street suddenly dropped. This was a young man in his 20s. He had a plain appearance and pale skin. He was wearing a bright white satin robe. When it was illuminated by the light, it seemed to be the source of the lights on the street. "Please get off the carriage, young master," the coachman asked softly. The young man in white nodded, took a step on the back of the attendant, and walked up the stone steps along the blanket. Then he lowered his head and climbed the steps. There were only 4 people on the long steps at this time. Hong Fan looked at this person. His hair hung down from his cheeks and was tied with white silk. The face in the middle was indifferent. Although he lowered his eyes, he didn't seem to be thinking seriously about anything. Instead, he had a kind of recklessness that was justified after being rampant for half a lifetime, and no one dared to stop him. The long steps of white marble were obviously wide enough, but Jingsha couldn't help but step back 2 steps to the side. The 2 sides crossed. The young man in white slowed down his pace until he reached the 3-person step. He raised his eyes and looked at Hong Fan and Zhang Yuanzi, who were standing there, with a little confusion. It was as if the dirt and mud in the strange flower bed had inexplicably moved to the road. No one spoke. After passing by, the young man in white lowered his eyes again and went straight into Mingyu Tower. "I've never seen such a strange person," Hong Fan laughed softly. "Indeed," Zhang Yuanzi said. "On that plain white mirror-like forging, there is actually a half-hidden scale pattern woven with the same color of mulberry silk using the warp-breaking technique. If there is no light shining from the side and standing close, how can anyone see it?" He frowned and said in confusion. "There is such a thing? You are really good at painting, but I didn't see it," Hong Fan said in surprise. "The strange thing I just said is his boots, the best moon-white silver boots, but there are no soles." Zhang Yuanzi was also surprised. "Boots without soles, won't they break after walking a few steps? Maybe this is a noble family." The 2 of them were amazed and turned to go up the stairs. Jingsha followed silently, not listening to their conversation, still suffering from the lingering shame in his heart. He didn't know why he remembered his big red cloud-patterned silk clothes. If he wore that uniform today, he would not give way to that person. Above the 18 jade steps is the main door of Mingyu Tower. 3 pairs of male and female waiters were waiting on both sides. All of them were dressed gorgeously and had excellent looks. Seeing the guests coming, the couple on the outermost side immediately came up to greet them and asked for their table numbers and names. Hong Fan answered them one by one. After just 2 sentences, he noticed that the waiter's eyes had swept over the 3 of them from head to toe, only lingering on his snake leather belt and chalcedony pendant. After entering the building, a huge brocade screen several feet long and wide blocked the way. The waiter led the way to the right. After turning through the entrance, Hong Fan's vision suddenly widened. The first thing he saw was the bright moon hanging diagonally in the sky, and the stars clustered beside it. The 3 of them were all stunned. It turned out that Mingyu building was different from other places, with a semi-open layout. The main building where Hong Fan was currently located was 8 stories high, and the wings on both sides were 4 stories each, connected to the riverside at the back, and extended to 2 docks. Looking down, the entire floor was in the shape of a concave. In the empty space in the middle, like a patio, there was a stage of several hundred square meters, surrounded by the river water diverted by the canal. On both sides of the stage, the band was arranged in a crescent shape, equipped with zither, flute, sheng, panpipe, pipa, konghao and other instruments, playing graceful tunes. Hong Fan crossed the water from the suspended corridor on the bottom floor, heard the mixed voices above, and saw 3 straight columns standing on the ground and supporting the sky. Not to mention other things, the dozens of giant trees that were more than 10 feet long were worth a huge amount of money. Under the guidance of the waiter, the 3 of them went up the stairs at the corner. They were on the 3rd floor of the wing on the right. The wide corridor was separated by heavy screens, and in each partition, there were 2 narrow wooden tables, one long and one short. Using a long table instead of a round table was obviously to allow the guests to be closer to the fence so that they could enjoy the performance below. The waiter stopped behind the 3rd screen and bowed to invite them. Master Lu Yun and his friends had already arrived and also stood up to greet them. Everyone sat down again. Strangely enough, once we sat down, the noisy chatter suddenly died down, leaving only the sound of stringed instruments from below. As for the view, although it was not as good as the main building in front, it was not bad. "Are all the guests here?" the waitress asked, and when Master Lu Yun nodded, she left silently. Hong Fan was surprised. Are all 8 of us here? Didn't you invite Shi Yuan Wei and the others? He asked. This banquet was held because of the bandit suppression incident in Kifeng Mountain, so Hong Fan thought the third team would be there. Master Lu Yun waved his hand. Shi Yuan Wei and I are just ordinary friends, and we have never been very close, he said, not shying away from the topic. For them, the affairs of Kifeng Mountain are nothing more than following orders and doing the job well, but you, Brother Hongfen, are different. If you had come a moment later, not to mention Zhu Song, I'm afraid the lives of the 5 of us would have been left in Woa village. As several people were talking, they saw a young lady wearing a green gauze skirt and a bun with her hair hanging down, half covering her face with a fan, carrying a small bamboo basket and walking to the table, bowing. When everyone looked at her, she lowered her fan and asked, "My name is Hongli, would you like some tea, gentlemen?" The voice was crisp, just like a lark falling between the screens. Hongfen looked over and saw that the girl was about 13 or 14 years old, with a little rouge on her cheeks and a flower made of dragonfly wings on her eyebrows, which made her skin look even whiter. "The wine hasn't come yet, so it's not bad to have some tea," Master Lu Yun replied in a nonchalant way. In fact, he was not a luxury guest who often came to Mingayu Tower, so how could he give up all the free services? "Then how about drinking gold flakes?" the girl asked crisply. Everyone nodded. Okay, so the young lady sat behind the shorter table, took out the tea cake from the bamboo basket, toasted it with fire to make it fragrant, and then crushed and ground it to make tea powder. Then, she carefully brewed it in the specified direction with boiling water. "What is this way of drinking?" Hong Fan asked. In his 2 lives, he had never drunk tea like this. "This is called making tea. Now people all make tea, and this method is less used," Yan Yulin explained. Compared with making tea, the biggest advantages and disadvantages of making tea are only one thing: the steps are complicated and the utensils are numerous. Look at the Hongli table: the tea stove, tea mortar, tea grinder, tea sieve, tea bottle, teacup, tea whisk, tea basket, teaspoon, water pot. It's difficult for ordinary people to get half of the utensils, so making tea is only popular among the upper class, Hong Fan understood after hearing this. No matter which world, aristocratic culture is always like this. Complexity shows the threshold. The less practical it is, the more class it can show. P.S. Strange, I have been very sleepy these days. I sleep 13 hours a day, and I wake up with backaches. The key is that after getting up, I only have 2 or 3 hours of energy, and then I yawn and feel exhausted. The operations officer is even more outrageous than me, sleeping in the morning and afternoon, and then sleeping at night after afternoon. It's inexplicable. Chapter 234 Frugal. However, there is another interesting aspect of making tea, that is, tea art, Yuan Zusong said, and seeing that Hong Fan did not understand, he added. It is to use clean water to dot and dye on the tea foam to make a painting. Use tea foam to make a painting. This was the first time Hong Fan heard of this, and he looked at Huang Li with interest. "Young lady, can you do it?" "My lord, of course I can. This is the entry-level homework for the courtesans in the building." Hong Li looked at him and her face flushed. "I am good at painting flowers, butterflies, and landscapes, but I am not as good as many sisters in painting portraits," she replied, lowering her head and stirring the tea whisk like a wooden brush. The tea foam floated up little by little. The people at the table continued to chat. Hong Fan, Master Lu Yun, and Zhan Yuanzi got along well with each other, but Bai Jiasi, who always claimed not to be interested in women, left his seat and came to Hong Li to watch. "I thought it would cost a lot to book a table at the flower tasting party," Master Lu Yun said. "I didn't expect that this year's banquet would be cheaper than last year. This table only cost 80 taels." He picked up a few preserved fruits and put them into his mouth to chew. "This is quite common," Yuan Zusong said casually. "With fewer people coming, the price is naturally cheaper." "With fewer people coming?" Hong Fan asked. "Is it because the harvest is bad this year?" "No, the harvest was good before the new governor appointed by the court took office," Yan Yulin replied. "But now the people in Zhejiang are making too much trouble. Since June, the new governor Jin has been holding on to several cases of Yao Canal transport. The struggle between the two sides has reached a point where the veins are exposed and in full swing. Many of the noble families I know have asked their children to show up as little as possible to avoid being caught in the limelight, so as not to be caught in the sore spot. Of course, it doesn't matter to poor people like us." He said it seriously, but his tone was relaxed. Hong Fan suddenly realized what he said, recalling that when he was interacting with Mr. He before, the other party seemed to have expressed similar ideas. At this moment, a burst of unbridled laughter suddenly came from the table in the middle of the fourth floor of the main building. He looked in the direction of the sound and saw the man sitting on the main seat, the young man in white robe whom he had seen when he entered the room before. "Brother Hong, do you know him?" Yuan Zusong asked. "No," Hong Fan shook his head. "I just passed by him when I entered the room before. I saw him wearing bottomless silver boots and using people as stools when he got off the car. He was so extravagant, so I was impressed." Yan Yulin smiled slightly when he heard the words. "That man is the son of the Liu family in Zijing, named Liu Jingxin. What you just said is just his daily style," he introduced, his voice very low. Speaking of which, after the governor entered Liangzhou, this Liu family also responded to the call for frugality. It is said that clothes are changed to wearing twice before throwing away. What about satin robes, thrown away after washing once? Zhang Yuanzi's eyes widened. "Yes, compared with the previous clothes are not worn twice, it is already frugal," Master Lu Yun said coldly. "You don't know, his father is Liu Rui, the 100-armed heavenly king who ranks 87th on the earth list. Liu Hengzhen, the current governor of Liangzhou, is his uncle." Hong Fan was stunned when he heard this. He had long expected that this man had a great background, but he didn't expect it to be so great. "If we had known earlier, we should have taken the initiative to make way for him." Hong Fan and Zhang Yuanzi looked at each other. With his father being a master and his uncle being a governor, isn't he definitely the #1 playboy in Zijing? After saying this, they both laughed. "He can't be considered the #1 playboy," Yuan Zusong shook his head. "But I'm afraid that lady won't come to such an occasion. Just considering Zijing, it's reasonable to rank Liu Jingxin second or third," and Hong Fan was curious and was about to ask in detail, but suddenly he felt uneasy. He stood up and turned his head to look around. He saw that the first floor was full of music and the second to fourth floors were full of distinguished guests. The atmosphere was peaceful and there was nothing wrong. There was silence for a moment during the meal. Master Lu Yun took the opportunity to ask what he had been holding back for a long time. "Brother Hong, I heard that your Star Lords can capture souls and spirits after killing and improve their cultivation." As soon as this was said, everyone's attention was focused on Hong Fan. "It's not about the mysterious things like souls and spirits," Hong Fan told the truth. "But every time I go to the battlefield, I do benefit." "What about this time in Kifeng Mountain?" Yuan Zusong asked. "Yes," Hong Fan nodded. "Half a month ago, only 60% of the 4th meridian was opened, but now it is completely opened. The 5th meridian is also 30% open." Everyone sighed and envied. At this time, a crisp voice squeezed into the long table. "Gentlemen, tea is served." Hong Li brought the tea tray over and served tea to everyone with a smile. Hong Fan took the cup and took a sip of the tea and powder. To be honest, in his opinion, this tea is only outstanding in fragrance, and the tea soup is far less refreshing than the one brewed in his previous life. But in the eyes of others, such tea art is already excellent. "There is a common opinion on tea making," Yan Yulin commented seriously. "The color is green, the fire is not enough. The color is gray, the fire is too old. The color is yellow, the picking is not enough. The color is red, the roasting is too old. This tea is bright white, the soup is delicate, and it doesn't fall apart after chewing for a long time, which shows the skill." Hong Li, who was waiting on the side, had been waiting for praise. When she heard it, her smile bloomed even more, and her eyes were curved like crescent moons. "There's more." She turned around and brought a round tea tray from the table, and placed it on the table carefully. "This is the tea show ordered by the young man." Everyone looked closely and saw that it was a portrait. The painting skills were not very good, but the outline was clear, and it was known at a glance that the painting was of Hong Fan. Seeing this, Master Lu Yun smiled and said, "Young lady, I am the host of this table today. Why did you paint him?" Hong Li's face was slightly red, but she was not shy. "Because this young man is very handsome," she replied cheerfully. Everyone laughed. Before the tea was halfway through, the dishes were gradually served. Hong Li removed the tea set and served the dishes. Just as Bai Jiasi said, the dishes in Mingyu Tower tasted great, 2 levels higher than those in Tinghe Pavilion and Xingsheng Hall. Half an hour passed. When Chen Nian Lihubai was half drunk, the music that floated up from the railing became more and more passionate. The voices between the high buildings gradually weakened. until the strings were plucked like a torrential rain and the pipes were blown like a strong wind. There was a sound of a gong, and the strings and bamboo stopped abruptly. Hundreds of people gathered in Mingayu Tower. In such a brilliant place, everything was silent, and the tide of the river could be heard. The sound of footsteps of gold and stone sounded. Hong Fan looked in the direction of the sound and saw a woman with appropriate makeup and elegant clothes slowly walking through the corridor and standing in the center of the patio. Everything in Mingayu Tower was exquisite and beautiful. Only the leader's speech was as boring as what Hong Fan had seen in his previous life. A parallel prose full of clichés. It begins with a welcome, followed by a continuation of the past, with the names of Liu Bai, Zhang Lin and several other gentlemen mentioned in the middle. Finally, it introduces the three Huayins, candidates for the Warren. The woman leaves the stage, and the stringed instruments begin again. The warm-up performance prepared by Mingayu Tower begins from then on. Chapter 235 Red Skirt and White Feet. The graceful green umbrella, the fair face, the wonderful dance follows the skirt, the clear song flows into the river. The prelude performances are of various types. In addition to singing, dancing and instrumental music, there are also some acrobatics and magic. This lasted for another half an hour. When the dinner was 8 minutes old and the guests were inevitably a little drunk, the flower appreciation meeting finally got to the point. The string and bamboo team withdrew, and the two wings set up big drums. The first flower singer took a small step onto the stage with a golden pipa inlaid on her face. Tong Fang Lao, meet the dream. The woman stood in the middle of the stage in a yellow skirt, holding the pipa and bowing to three sides. Like everyone else, Hong Fan stopped his cupping chopsticks and looked at her. If you want to describe it in a literary way, you can naturally write hundreds of thousands of sentences like narrow sleeves and light silk, warm and soft clouds. In a sentence, it is probably Zhang Fuqi with a more slender figure and more delicate makeup. It is beautiful, but it is just beautiful. Feng Meng stood in the gazes of hundreds of people. She nodded slightly to the person on the side, adjusted her breathing, held the pipa in her hands, and bent her right leg to rest on her left knee. Then she sat down in midair. There was a long silence. Everyone waited with bated breath, but the show never started. When the mood gradually changed from curiosity, nervousness, anxiety to a hint of anger, Feng Meng suddenly plucked the strings. The silk string left her fingers and simultaneously vibrated horizontally, vertically, torsionally, and at the same time, there was a clanging sound. This sound was amplified by the resonance of the piano box, mixed with the natural overtones of the rosewood sound column, and spread into the atmosphere like a tide. It was a shocking thing. Hong Fan's breath suddenly choked. He immediately realized that the beautiful woman downstairs was a warrior. Not a weak warrior. The sound of the pipa was like pearls falling on a plate, one after another, and each one was distinct. For a moment, it seemed that there was a thunder and lightning in the building, ignoring the screen partition, and casting the four corridors into one. On both sides of the stage, heavy hammers hit the drums. Feng Meng lowered her right leg and began to dance. She spun, leaped, stretched. Her movements were extremely large, but the sound of the pipa was not disturbed at all as her skirt turned. In a cup of tea, the performance came to an end. Feng Meng's steps became faster and her fingering became more and more fierce. Finally, she jumped up and held the pipa on her shoulders, floating like a goddess riding the wind. The sound of the four strings was like a tearing silk. The woman landed and spun around, her posture frozen. The breath that had been taken away from everyone was returned at this moment. The applause was like thunder, and the cheers were like rain. Feng Meng bowed and left the stage. The second Huyin came up. She was wearing a plain white long skirt and a silver hairpin on her head. She was as tall as a man, but she was particularly thin. Kixiaju, listen to it and get drunk, she bowed on three sides and said. The voice was obviously very soft, but everyone in the audience could hear it clearly, and it echoed between the three buildings. The echo faded. A chime sounded, and it continued. The humming sound was like a veil, covering the world. Tingzu spoke at this time. Unlike everyone's expectations, she uttered a very deep and rich sound. It was as if bubbles of magma were gushing out from the burning fire at the bottom of the world. The sound continued to sink, almost to the point of discomfort. Hong Fan felt thirsty and picked up the wine glass. At this moment, Tingzu's second sound burst out. Light and sharp. It was like a ray of white light shining from the sky between the abyss of Giannia. The world was reopened and the world was moving. 10 years to plant trees, 1 year to plant grains, wake up to the bright moon, and get drunk to the breeze. The melodious melody grabbed everyone's soul. Hong Fan had heard of a person singing with 2 voices in his previous life, called humming. The singer made the breath hit the vocal cords violently, emitting a thick bubble sound, forming a bass part, and then cleverly adjusted the resonance of the mouth, strengthened the concentrated overtones, and sang a transparent and clear high-pitched part with a metallic sound. But Tingzu's expressiveness was completely on another level. Her voice was so three-dimensional and so rich. Between the eaves, it seemed as if there were mountains rising and trenches sinking. The vastness of the world was presented within the narrow hearing distance, from left ear to right ear. How many times in ancient and modern times, living in luxurious houses and scattered hills. Let's stop. After a while, the song ended. Most people didn't even notice the end of the performance. Until another chime sounded. Hong Fan realized that Tingzu had left the stage at some point, and he was still holding a wine glass in his hand. The glass was empty. He didn't know if there was no wine in it or if he had already drunk it. Alice, no wonder we have to wait until the banquet is over before inviting the 3 masters. Yan Yulin sighed and spit out the roasted deer he had taken a few bites of. It's tasteless. Whispering, the guests looked down, but the last 2 yin did not come out. Just as they were wondering, a laugh rose from above. Mingayu Tower, Wind Catkins, the sound of stringed instruments suddenly rose. A silver dragon flew down from the sky. Hong Fan looked up and saw a woman in a bright red dress holding 2 swords and stepping on the eaves barefoot, running down lightly. From the 4th floor of the left wing building to the 3rd floor of the main building. Then she turned around and jumped, stretched her waist, floated 5 meters away, and landed on the stage. She covered her face with her sleeves and stood on tiptoe, freezing for a short time. It was just enough for everyone to see the 2 colors of red skirt and white feet. The 2 swords were soaked in moonlight, and they danced fiercely. Like mercury pouring on the ground, like a breeze returning snow. After the sword dance, Feng Su turned around and threw. With a click, the longsword accurately shot into the scabbard hanging under the eaves 3 meters away. With 2 arms, she stretched out her sleeves. She wiped her waist and shook off the silver bell. The bright and charming laughter penetrated the ears of the guests and nestled in the eardrums. Feng Su stepped faster. The wind chimes tied to her body began to ring. At some point, several half-foot-long wooden boards were pushed out on each floor of the 3 buildings. Across the Rayote River, Feng Su leaped up the steps, circling and flying. The lights were brilliant, but the red flames dancing in the corners of the building were more eye-catching. Turning around the main building, Feng Su rushed towards the 3rd floor of the right wing. Just when Hong Fan thought she was going to crash into the banquet, a snow-white barefoot poked out from under the red skirt, stepped on the carved railing, and turned away. The person was far away. The ringing of bells, the fragrance, and the laughter with warmth, came to his face and lingered. The fragrant shadow flashed and disappeared, seducing Master Lu Yun's soul. For the first time, Hong Fan understood that sound could also have color. Between the multiple buildings, the ringing of bells and the laughter swirled and burned. At this moment, it was red. Finally, Feng Su leaped out from the 4th floor of the right wing. The 2 buildings were far apart. Just as the red skirt fell, the sleeves were raised from both sides and tied to a rope dyed black and almost invisible in the air above the building. With this force, the shadow passed under the moon and disappeared into the other wing. The sound of stringed instruments stopped. Silence. Silence. Silence that you can hear a pin drop. After a moment, Hong Fan was the first to come to his senses. Speaking of static, Feng Su's appearance is no more beautiful than Feng Meng and Teng Ziyue. After the dance, the most deeply engraved in everyone's mind was the long fiery skirt fluttering in the air. As for the pretty face that appeared behind Zhang Yang's red, the more you think about it, the more it fades. The more it fades, the more extraordinary it is. Is this worth 80 taels? He sighed. P.S. The lyrics of Teng Ziyue are adapted from Yuan Haowen's People and Moons Are Full. Chonggang has separated the red dust. I guess many readers find Hua Yin's performance a bit boring. But I really spent a lot of effort to look up information, design, describe, and weigh the details, so that I also want to see the performance with my own eyes. How to say it, even though I know this thing is thankless, I still don't want to write it away. The core of a book is of course the story, but the reality of the world in the book often comes from these tiny things. Chapter 236 Bird on the screen. Hong Fan turned his head and saw that Master Lu Yun still maintained the same posture as before, with burning eyes looking at the opposite balcony where Feng Su disappeared. It was as if his soul was carried away by the fragrant wind, half of it. Hong Fan patted him on the shoulder. Master Lu Yun's body trembled, swallowed his saliva, and felt lost. He forced a smile to Hong Fan, raised his cup and drank it all, as if to wash away a certain figure in his heart. Most people at the table were dry-mouthed and speechless for a moment. Thinking back to the 3 performances, Hong Fan suddenly understood why Wu Hongling was particularly disdainful of the flower-tasting meeting. The 3 Huyins were actually warriors with middle and upper-level cultivation. Especially the last one, Feng Su. Her cultivation was hard to say compared with Hong Lai and Hong Bo, but just looking at her age of about 17 or 18, her talent was far superior. Dahua is martial. If not, how could a little beauty move a city? Hong Li saw that everyone's cups were empty, and came over to add wine. However, the hand that always held the pot very steadily spilled the wine this time. She screamed ah, and there was a trace of fear on her chubby face. No one at the table was angry. Ms. Feng Su is from Mingyu Tower. You must have seen her singing and dancing, Hong Fan said with a smile. Why are you so distracted after seeing her today? He casually sent out a stream of fire, which evaporated the spilled wine and gave off the fragrance of pear blossoms. Hong Li glanced at him and lowered her head without looking back. Young lady, are you yearning for the courtesan? Hong Fan guessed. Hong Li's cheeks were flushed. She hesitated for a moment, and seeing that his words were sincere and not teasing, she finally nodded slightly. The courtesan is sought after by thousands of people and is famous in Beijing. Who wouldn't yearn for her? Bai Jiasi said in a humorous way. After hearing this, Hong Li's face turned gloomy. Bai Jiasi didn't understand what was wrong and was at a loss for a moment. Outside the jade railing, 3 Huyins came out together and were entering the next stage. A rose costs 30 taels, a peony costs 80 taels, and a flower basket costs 200 taels. Under the chairmanship of the chief steward of Mingyu Tower, the wealthy young masters and sons of noble families voted for the flowers presented to the 3 Huaiyans and shouted non-stop. Young Master Liu Xingxin presented a flower basket to Master Feng Meng. Young Master Bai Taiping presented 3 peonies to Master Tsingzhu. Young Master Zhang Wenbo presented 10 roses to Master Feng Su. Amid the noise, Hong Li turned her eyes away and stared at the light golden satin screen that separated the world. Hong Fan followed her gaze and saw a lark embroidered on a branch. The posture of spreading its wings and about to fly was frozen just before it left the branch. The screen of Mingyu Tower was naturally spotless. But if you look closely, you can see that the bird's golden feathers have dimmed due to age. No matter how beautiful the song is or how bright the feathers are, the bird on the screen is still on the screen even if it dies. Hong Fan suddenly felt a surge of sadness in his heart and turned his head to look at the river. But Bai Jiasi stared at Hong Li's profile for a long time. At this moment, he even found it difficult to breathe. The ranking contest on the stage has reached the end. Feng Meng and Tingzi Yui each have a gift of about 2,000 taels in front of them. Feng Su is far ahead, with about 3,000 taels. These gifts came from more than 20 tables, but most of them came from the 7 or 8 richest people. The table of Master Lu Yun was full of poor guys, so naturally they couldn't participate. Except for Hong Fan. More than a month later, Cheyenne Hang's business has been developed. According to estimates, it can bring Hong Fan a secret income of about 10,000 taels a month. A flower basket of 200 taels is nothing in comparison. But in his eyes, the live broadcast ranking contest style of calling out names and giving rewards is really a bit cheap. From the performance alone, which of the 3 programs do you think is the best? Hong Fan glanced at the pile of flowers in front of Feng Su and asked. Unexpectedly, the people at the table looked at each other, and no one spoke. It's hard to say, Yuanzu Song said in embarrassment, looking at Zhan Yuanzi. It is said that all arts are interlinked. Brother Zhan, you are a great painter, and you should be the most knowledgeable about elegance among our generation. What do you think? He asked. Everyone looked at Zhan Yuanzi. Well, if we talk about elegance, all 3 performances are very elegant. He rarely expected it. But 7 or 8 pairs of eyes were staring at him, and he couldn't fool them. Feng Meng's pipa is exquisite, Tingzi Yui's singing voice is high. Feng Su, Zhan Yuanzi forced his comment. Halfway through his words, he couldn't help but think of a picture in his mind. The graceful curves revealed in the flying red dress, the beautiful face that passed by in a glance, and the refreshing and soft fragrance that still lingers. At this time, How can he still remember the Pippa singing and dancing? I think the third performance is the best, Zhang Yuanzi said, his old face flushed. As soon as this was said, the atmosphere at the table suddenly became loud. Great minds think alike, Master Lu Yun nodded heavily. Brother Zhang really understands, Yuan Zhusuang gently clapped his hands. I second the motion, Yan Yulin also said seriously. I have never cared about women, but when I think about it carefully, Feng Su is indeed slightly better. Hongli sat on the side, curled her lips, and held back her laughter. Hong Fan glanced at everyone and raised his glass. You all understand elegance, drink up. After a few rounds of Lahul Bay, the result was already known downstairs. As expected, Feng Su, who occupied the advantageous position, won the title of Zijing's most beautiful flower in the 28th year of Zhen. Feng Meng and Tingzu were a little disappointed, but they still kept smiling, bowed and retreated. The flower appreciation meeting came to this, but it was not over yet. A girl brought a brocade-wrapped hydrangea to the stage. Today, with the help of all the gentlemen, I have achieved my wish and ranked first among the flowers. Feng Su took the hydrangea and said loudly, I cannot repay such kindness, so I will give you this ball to express my gratitude. The young man who got the ball, I will welcome you with wine and dance someday. After she finished speaking, the cheers of the guests lit up the high building. Feng Su smiled lightly, raised her right leg to the sky, and climbed all the way up until her red skirt was barefoot and higher than her head. She threw the ball lightly and landed on her toes. The courtesan stretched her whole body straight, suddenly bent her knees and kicked, sending it 10 feet into the air. In the three-sided building, the true energy flowed instantly. Some people used the edgeless key sword, and some people threw melon seeds and peanuts with soft force, in order to take back the ball without damaging the brocade. For a while, more than 30 people fought for it in the air. Soon, more than a dozen Guantong realm masters knew that they were unlucky and gradually withdrew. Then several young masters from the big families sitting on the third and fourth floors of the main building joined the game. The remaining masters of the whole world were a foil for a moment, and also tactfully withdrew from the competition. This is what the title implies. If it is said directly that the person who contributed the most money to win the prize at the annual flower appreciation fair, it would be too vulgar. But in fact, everyone knows that the hydrangea of the courtesan is a return gift prepared for the gentleman who contributed the most money. P.S. When writing this chapter, I remembered a famous article by Eileen Chang, so I used it. She is not a bird in a cage. If the cage is opened, she can still fly out. She is a bird embroidered on a screen, a white bird in gilded clouds on a gloomy purple satin screen. Over the years, her feathers have darkened, moldy, and been eaten by insects. Even if she dies, she will die on the screen. Jasmine Tea. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237 Broken Iron. Above the stage, the 8 immortals showed their magical powers. Liu Xingxin on the 4th floor gathered and dispersed his long arm with his true key, and grabbed the hydrangea. Before he retracted half of it, a shock wave of ki from downstairs flew diagonally and dispersed the long arm. Brother Zhang just spent a lot of money on Feng Su. It seems that he is determined to win. A long laugh came from another table on the 4th floor. Before the voice faded, a heavy true ki had already rushed out, eliminating the shock. At this time, there were only 7 people participating in this match, and their cultivation was above the Hunran realm. The hydrangea jumped and bounced in the air. There was an unwritten rule in this game, that is, the participants must not destroy the hydrangea, otherwise it would be the most unrefined. Because of this, the 7 people dared to be clever and did not dare to use too much force. The anxious stalemate continued. A sword energy flew diagonally and was shattered by the shock wave. The hydrangea rolled away and fell directly to the right wing. This situation has just happened twice, and everyone knows what to do, and nothing happened. But this time it was finally different. When Master Lu Yun, who had been staring at the catkins in the dark for a long time, saw the woven pattern on the ball again, he could no longer suppress the impulse in his heart. Since I am prisoned, why can't I? The 7 true ki were still entangled. The Hunin ki force was inexplicably spit out, becoming the 8th force that no one in the field expected, and brought a hydrangea into his hands. The game was over. When the hydrangea was held in his own hands, Master Lu Yun looked at the beautiful figure standing on the stage, and the whole person seemed to be bathed in fire, filled with heat from inside and outside. But the silence in the whole place was like a bucket of ice water, which immediately cooled him down. All eyes in Mingyu Tower were now looking at the third seat on the third floor of the right-wing building. Yuan and Yan's heart skipped a beat. I wonder who it is. His hands and feet are not under my control. A voice suddenly rose from the third floor of the main building. Isn't this the young General Lu Sam from the family of the general who guards the country? This was full of sarcasm. Master Lu Yun is the eldest son of the Lu family, but he has two half-brothers. Hong Fan looked in the direction of the voice. The speaker was wearing a black brocade robe, sitting in the middle of the third floor, and looked to be about 22 or 23 years old. Master Lu Yun did not reply. He knew he had made a mistake, but others were obviously not prepared to understand. If I remember correctly, you didn't bring any gifts at all. How can you have the nerve to participate in this banquet? The young man in black clothes mocked. Lu San, if I were you, I would hide carefully, lest my shabby taste taint this grand gathering. The words were like knives, piercing his heart. Jiang Wenbei, Master Lu Yun shouted in a low voice, already furious. However, in the main building, no one cared about his pig liver-like face. Don't be angry, we have known each other since childhood, Jiang Wenbei smiled. Now you make up a flower basket for everyone in Feng Su. Others don't know, but I have nothing to say. At this time, Master Lu Yun felt that the hydrangea in his hand was as hot as charcoal. He looked down silently, and saw Feng Su, who was wearing a red dress, looking over. The eyes of the courtesan were full of expectation and worry. In Hong Fan's view, this was obviously the basic skill of a courtesan. If she couldn't look at him with a glance and make everyone on the street feel that her eyes were full of affection, how could she be worthy of being a courtesan? After looking at each other, Master Lu Yun was already half dizzy. But he was not his younger self after all. His family was in decline, and his father was addicted to gambling, and it was difficult to persuade him. How could he not understand the difficult situation of the Lu family and the truth that money was hard to make and shit was hard to eat? If it weren't for the excuse of thanking Hong Fan for saving his life, he wouldn't have spent the 80 taels of money for the banquet at Mingyu Tower. Seeing Master Lu Yun's torment, Jiang Wenbei laughed out loud. He stood up leisurely, jumped down the third floor, and landed on the stage. You picked up Feng Su's hydrangea. According to the rules, I have nothing to say, Jiang Wenbei said loudly. He hung a long sword on his left waist, which was held in a hollow scabbard, and the blade was shining. But you should know that the title of today's leader was made of 300 kilograms of silver. I am not the only one who is dissatisfied with letting a stingy person take advantage of this, Jiang Wenbei shouted loudly. Looking around Mingyu Tower, and indeed got the nods of approval from most people. Now that things have come to this, why not follow the old rules and have a fight? If you lose, give me the embroidered ball. If you win, you will get this broken iron. How about it? The voice echoed in Mingyu Tower. Feng Su had silently left the stage. The eyes of the audience were like bayonets on Master Lu Yun's face, and he had no choice but to respond. As you wish, Master Lu Yun squeezed out 3 words from his teeth. Jiang Wenbei's sword was called Broken Iron, a 3rd grade, Zhuan level, sword purchased with a heavy gold of 500 taels. He recognized it. Dahua weapons are divided into 4 grades. The 4th grade is similar to the White Disaster before Hong Fan, except that it is more solid, sharp, and tougher than inferior weapons. There is no fundamental difference. So after 2 bloody battles, the White Disaster was still broken. But starting from the 3rd grade, every weapon can circulate true energy and enhance the martial arts of the weapon master. Yulin, lend me a knife. Master Lu Yun slowly stood up and stared at the flowing edge of the broken iron and said. Hong Fan frowned slightly. He knew that Master Lu Yun practiced the Wuxiang Hunan Classic and was best at boxing and kicking. Even against chewing bones, he would fight with bare hands. The stage was cleared, leaving only the 2 facing each other. Broken iron shaped true energy and showed a 3-foot blade. Master Lu Yun was obviously cautious. Jiang Wenbei took the lead in attacking. He was very fast. Judging from Hong Fan's eyesight, he was probably a 6-pulse cultivation in the Hunran realm, and his hard power was similar to Wu Ruai. But as soon as they fought, Master Lu Yun, who was in the Xiaolao realm, fell behind. There was no other reason. The Zhuan-level sword was really sharp. Jiang Wenbei practiced this Hanherong Dian handed down from his family. His true energy was transformed into an air blade through the broken iron, and bursts of buzzing were heard. Hong Fan thought of the conceptual weapon in his previous life, the high-frequency knife. No matter how good the material is, the microstructure cannot be completely uniform. After applying high-frequency vibration, the local amplitude of the uneven part of the material will be slightly different from the surrounding area. If the energy of the high-frequency weapon is high enough, it can instantly make the tiny uneven vibrations accumulate to fatigue, and then superimpose the cutting effect of the weapon itself. Cutting gold and breaking iron is just a common thing. The battle on the stage quickly passed 3 rounds. Hong Fan frowned. The fighting movements of both sides were very gorgeous, so that there were many useless and procrastinating elements. This was completely different from the Master Lu Yun he saw on Kifeng Mountain. Because of this, the situation became more and more one-sided. One side wielded an unstoppable sword with a big and open posture. The most likely way for the other side to win was naturally to abandon all the cumbersome things in order to seize the opportunity to win with one blow. There was a clang. The broken iron easily cut off the steel knife in Master Lu Yun's hand, just like cutting paper. The winner is decided, Jiang Wenbei said proudly. Your knife is not good, buy a better one next time. Master Lu Yun did not reply, but bent down to pick up the broken blade, his fingers shaking. LV-san, I heard that you became a tiki. Jiang Wenbei stood aside, speaking more and more outrageously. Since we are not the same kind of people, we usually don't bother to mention you, but today you have to come to a place like Mingyu Tower. Times are different. Can you, a young general, afford to play with the things we play with? He glanced at Master Lu Yun and asked with a smile. Chapter 238, The Power of the Tongue. Master Lu Yun held the broken knife, his face flushed, but he could not turn back. The former dignified Lu family of Shenjing, now he's a retainer of another family, running around in exchange for some rewards. Jiang Wenbei turned around and picked up the hydrangea, and said lightly in a voice that everyone could hear. If I were you, if you had self-respect, you wouldn't wear that red skin. As soon as these words came out, many children of the noble family sitting in the main building cheered loudly. But Master Lu Yun was already on the verge of collapse. Hong Fan suddenly thought of the conversation with the Gongsun Shi before leaving Jinhe City. The attitude of the noble families towards this Hangwu Academy can be seen from that scene. At the banquet on the 3rd floor, Yuan Zusong and Yan Yulin stood up suddenly, their faces as gloomy as water. They were extremely angry, but they finally held back from fighting back. Not as good as money, not as good as power, not as good as fighting power. Anger without strength to support it is meaningless except for self-harm. Jiang Wenbei heard the movement upstairs and looked up. Proud and disdainful. Hong Li turned pale with fear and shrank aside. Yuan and Yan took a deep breath and sat back tremblingly. Bai Jiasi clenched his fists, but turned his face away, not daring to let those noble families see his expression. At this time, Hong Fan saw Zhan Yuanzi straightening his robes and slowly standing up. Then he shouted. How dare you? In Hong Fan's eyes, Zhan Yuanzi has always been an easygoing person. This is also the first time he has seen him so serious. The Imperial Guards have gone to great lengths to reach the heavens and earth, and the sun and moon have not shone on them. They have traveled back and forth, risking their lives. How dare you disrespect them? The question was extremely stern. Jiang Wenbei's momentum was choked. He looked down on the Imperial Guards. This was absolutely true. First, the Zhangwu Academy under Guan Kimei's rule often opposed the noble families. Second, the Dahua nobles did not think that they were inferior to the Zhao family from the bottom of their hearts, and naturally regarded the title of the emperor's guest as an insult. But in the public eye, Jiang Wenbei was fine with sarcasm, but he didn't dare to say it clearly. A commoner, are you worthy enough to talk to the son of the Jiang family? He glanced at her forcefully, not taking up the topic, and only insulted her from somewhere else. Some applauding laughter came from the direction of the main building, but was immediately interrupted. Commoners also know how to serve the country, and common people can also help the people. Zhan Yuanzi did not give in, and his voice became even louder. You are living a life of luxury but wasting your time. Such a shameless person is not worthy of talking to me. The whole room was silent. Jiang Wenbei is the daughter of the Jiang family, and the nephew of the Yuanzi master shocking 100 miles Jiang Danhu. He has rarely been bullied in his life, let alone been scolded. After being scolded by Zhan Yuanzi, young Master Jiang's tongue was a little knotted. You are good at talking. What kind of man are you? He cursed with veins bulging on his forehead. After a short break, Jiang Wenbei organized his words again before he could calm down. This matter was caused by the third son of the Lu family. You and I have never met before. You are just standing up for him, then, come down and we will have another fight. The broken iron was unsheathed for the second time. Zhan Yuanzi shook his head seriously. What if we have another fight? He looked down solemnly. If you win, you are right. If I lose, I am wrong. A simple sentence, no cleverness, just plain truth. But it choked Jiang Wenbo to death again. Hong Fan laughed silently, and suddenly recalled his first meeting with Zhan Yuanzi. When they were about to compete, the latter also admitted defeat directly like this. He was not a person who admired the strong, so what did winning or losing matter to him? It was this kind of person who could be alone at the age of nearly 40, and fell into a situation of being abandoned by everyone, but still indifferent and leisurely. My cultivation is far inferior to Brother Lu, and I will definitely lose if I fight with you, Zhan Yuanzi continued. But if you insist on fighting, I will accompany you, he said, and was about to jump down from the third floor, but Hong Fan held his shoulders. The latter had seen the cruel look in Jiang Wenbo's eyes. Hong Fan pulled Zhan Yuanzi away, stood with one hand on the railing, and looked down at the people below. Red Ribbon Tiki, Jin Hei Hong Fan. This time, he did not use humble words such as I and your highness. Since this young master Jiang insulted this Hangwu Academy, he also insulted me. At this point, it would be unreasonable not to fight. I am better at fighting than my brother. If you are not afraid, why don't you let me do it? He laughed and provoked. What a joke, whoever you say will come. Hearing Hong Fan's Jinhei accent, Jiang Wenbo became more disdainful. Now that the embroidery ball is in my hand, how can you fight me? The innate arrogance flowed out from his words and sentences. Then how about adding some spurs? Hong Fan said immediately. If I win, you return the hydrangea to Master Lu Yun and apologize. If I lose, I'll treat you to your seat. Hearing this, many children from aristocratic families laughed. My seat is the second best seat at the flower tasting party, and including the drinks, it costs 1,000 taels of silver, Jiang Wenbei said in a disdainful voice. Can you afford it? As soon as the words fell, a silver note that was stretched straight by the true energy shot out with a swish sound, nailed into the carved railing on the third floor of the main building, and then softened again. 1,000 taels of official notes, guaranteed to be genuine. Hong Fan retracted his hand and said lightly. Jiang Wenbei was stunned and could not change his words. If you want to humiliate yourself, come down, he shouted. Hong Fan flew off the stage. Surrounded by lights and eyes, the two stood opposite each other. Jiang Wenbei, 6 meridians are perfect. Jiang Wenbei pointed forward with broken iron. You don't use weapons, Hong Fan, the 4 meridians of the pure realm? Hong Fan put his hands behind his back and caught his opponent's gaze without hesitation. The river breeze blew and the light swayed. In the mottled light and shadow, almost invisible fine sand overflowed from the potted plants on all sides of the stage. In that case, don't make excuses if you lose. Jiang Wenbei no longer wasted time, holding his sword and pressing forward, slowly accelerating. Several masters perched on the high ground saw something was wrong. Behind Jiang Wenbei, countless sparse-ending golden stars chased him directly. When they were 4 arms away, the broken iron stabbed forward. Jiang Wenbei took a step and his face changed suddenly. It was obviously the best quality carpet, but at this time it lost its friction, making him feel like he was stepping on a floor full of rolling balls. The sword was crooked and the swordsman also slipped to the side. Be careful, it's sand. Liu Xingxin on the 4th floor leaned forward, concentrated and distinguished, and shouted. But with the speed of the pure realm warriors fighting, how could they speak in time? Jiang Wenbei was in midair, not understanding what was happening, so he used his left hand to support himself and tried to retreat. His palm also slipped. He fell sideways to the ground, and felt his right palm tighten, and saw that the broken iron sword was firmly stepped on by a long boot. Although Jiang Wenbei was a literary cultivator and had not experienced any life and death situations, his martial arts skills were there after all. His first reaction was to draw his sword and roll over. Unexpectedly, he couldn't draw the sword. Jiang Wenbei looked intently and saw a ball of fine sand wrapped around the sword. He immediately urged out a 3-foot air blade and twisted his wrist horizontally. In his opinion, there was nothing that broken iron couldn't cut. But this time, the sword disappointed its owner. P.S. A painter is a saint. It is to explore the unreachable heaven and earth, and to show the unillumination of the sun and the moon. With a wielding brush, all things are from the heart. and the ability of a square inch is displayed, and 1,000 miles are in the palm of your hand. Zhu Jingxun's famous paintings of the Tang Dynasty. Chapter 239, Elegant and Graceful. High-frequency knives are good at cutting hard objects. To some extent, the harder the object, the better the effect. The method of accumulating vibrations to fatigue is the most difficult to use when facing materials with strong elasticity and low hardness. However, in the case of the sand ball, it is not even a question of elasticity. Millions of fine sand grains are not a hole at all. The vibration energy is easily consumed by the collision and friction between the sand and gravel, and converted into heat energy. And what Hong Fan wants now is heat energy. After locking the weapon, the flame flow rolled out, and with Zhang Wenbo's own efforts, the broken iron was heated to more than 800 degrees in an instant. The high temperature reduced the quality of the long sword base. Then, a stronger buzzing sound resounded through the tall building. The sand flow knife flew from the fingertips and hit the narrow sword body of the broken iron. Sparks flew like a dragon. With a sharpling sound, Zhang Wenbo's hand suddenly became lighter and he finally rolled out. But the half body of the broken iron was still stepped on. His Xuan-level sword was actually broken. Thank you, Hong Fan laughed loudly. Your sword is not very good. Buy a better one next time. The noise rose. Zhang Wenbei stood there in a daze, feeling an unprecedented sense of disillusionment. With the 6 meridians of the whole body against the 4 meridians of the whole body, and the advantage of the magic weapon, he could not last more than 3 rounds. He could not accept it. But the broken sword in his hand and the impact hole that penetrated the stage 3 meters away made it difficult for him to defend himself. Since the killing method just now could easily break broken iron, it could naturally penetrate flesh and blood. "I lost," Zhang Wenbei said with difficulty. As soon as these words came out, it was like a stream of blood rushing from the soles of his feet to his head, blurring the lights from high above, making him dizzy and tinnitus. "What martial arts killing method did you use?" Zhang Wenbei asked dejectedly. The answer came from above his head. He didn't use martial arts, that was the world of destiny star sand. This voice came from the 4th floor of the main building, majestic and magnificent, leading to whispers in the whole audience. After Ma Jingsha died, the Star of Destiny was said to have stayed in the Golden Sea. You call yourself the Golden Sea Hong Fan, so you must be the new Star Lord of the Sand World. The speaker was standing by the railing, in the middle of the lights. He was a tall and thin man in a purple robe, a high crown and a wide belt. He was sitting at the same table with Liu Xingxin. "You are right," Hong Fan looked at him and nodded in reply. "What a great sand world. I didn't expect that the 3rd Star Lord would come to Zijing," the purple-robed young man praised, with arrogance visible on his face. "But you didn't explain it in advance before the competition, which was a lack of openness." He spoke with certainty, and immediately attracted criticism. Hong Fan just sneered. "This is ridiculous. Before fighting with me, young Master Zhang didn't say what kind of martial arts he practiced, and he also had the advantage of weapons." The purple-robed young man shook his head. No, the Zhang family has passed down this Hanherongdian for generations, who doesn't know it? And broken iron has always been Wenbo's personal weapon. It's fair and above board." The noise upstairs became more and more noisy, and many people echoed. Zhang Wenbo's face changed slightly, and he seemed to have second thoughts about winning or losing. "I came from Jinhe and have heard the 10 classics of Dahua, but I really don't know the Zhang family's Zhanherongdian," Hong Fan sneered. As for fair and above board, he looked at the purple-robed man and mocked. "The fate star is given by Zulong. Why don't you go and remind him, so that he will let you know before choosing the star god in the future?" The discussion suddenly quieted down. Even if they were from aristocratic families, no one could take up this statement. If it were an ordinary person, it would be an overstepping of authority to bring up Zulong as a topic, and it would anger everyone. But Hong Fan is a star god, personally selected by Zulong, and it is difficult for others to accuse him of disrespect. "I'll give you a word of advice," Hong Fan said, driving the sand flow to take the hydrangea. "If you lose with your hands, you can't win it back with your mouth," Zhang Wenbo stammered. He suppressed his emotions, bowed to Master Lu Yun hastily, turned around and went back upstairs. "It's over." Hong Fan looked at Master Lu Yun, slightly reproachful. The latter didn't dare to meet his gaze. The hydrangea was thrown out and fell into Master Lu Yun's arms. Then it was bounced away by a force of energy. Hong Fan frowned and saw the purple-robed young man who had just spoken with his sleeves fluttering, flying from the 4th floor into the arena. This man was about 25 or 26 years old, standing in the center of the stage. His every move was indeed extraordinary. It was a pity that his appearance was a little off. It's not over yet, wait, he turned around and called Hong Fan. Wenbo is 1-on-2, 2 rounds of round-robin battles, you must fight me again, it's fair, Hong Fan sighed. He had never seen such an arrogant person. This purple-robed young man and Jiang Wenbei were not originally seated together, and it was not clear how deep their friendship was. It was nothing more than a slight loss in words, but it took all this trouble. I have to say it in advance, I don't know you, and I don't know that your family has martial arts, Hong Fan stopped and said. By typing from the Bai family in Zhejiang, the purple-robed man said proudly. Practicing the family-inherited rock classic, Hong Fan's face did not change. He really had never heard of this person, and he didn't know the rock classic. However, someone upstairs had introduced him. Thank you, Brother Bai Shi, for your help, Jiang Wenbei excitedly bowed on the 3rd floor. Hong Fan, Brother Bai Shi broke into the realm of heaven and man at the end of summer last year. In February this year, he fought with flipping river dragon Aoshiji, but unfortunately lost. As soon as these words came out, Zhan Yuanzi, Bai Jiasi and others upstairs became solemn. Hong Fan knew about Aoshiji. The biological son of Ao Fu Wei, the leader of the Fu Bo gang, was on the Xianjiao list at the end of last year, and his combat power was at least to the level of Shi Yuanwei. I just don't know what the reluctant defeat that Jiang Wenbo mentioned really means. On the other hand, when someone else spoke of his glorious achievements, Bai Taiping became more and more proud. Hong Fan, you come from a poor family in the border area, and it's hard to get rid of your vulgarity, he taught seriously. The way of martial arts is not just about winning or losing, the body contains the mind, and the killing method shows the style. You just used a small trick to win, which is already inferior. In the 3-sided building, many children from aristocratic families nodded repeatedly after hearing this. Hong Fan was speechless for a moment. We, the Tiki military merit, will take it immediately. If we take a wrong step, it will be life or death. We can't compare to you, the literary cultivators, who are babbling and pretentious, he said unhappily, using sharper words. Anyway, he was regarded as a barbarian. The 8 words babbling, pretentious made Bai Taiping's breath a little heavy. Alice, summer insects can't talk about ice. He stood with his hands behind his back. It's just a matter of a dancing girl, it's not worth my effort. The embroidered ball belongs to LV Lao San. Hong Fan, if you lose, I want you to serve tea and apologize, and take back what you just said. If you win, I will retreat 3 steps when I see the Tiki in the future, Bai Taiping said, urging his true energy. I'll let you make 3 moves, and then I'll teach you what is elegant and graceful. Go ahead, the moon is in the sky. The wind is gentle, and the river waves are slightly calm. Elegant and graceful, I'm looking forward to it, Hong Fan smiled softly, the moon reflected in his eyes, and he bent slightly. The sand flow attached to the cast armor swelled slightly, as if breathing. The airflow rolled, blowing ripples in the 4 channels of the stage. PS, 2 chapters are released in a row today, the emotions can be more coherent. Chapter 240 Ironheart. Then, he stepped on the stage again. The ripples were stimulated and turned into a raging wave. The world slowed down. The water curtain hung in the air like a curtain, scattering pearls, reflecting the fire and moonlight. In the silence, only Wang Long was running like a lightning. Bend your elbows, focus your eyes, lock your wrists, and cut. Bai Taiping's heart was like falling into an ice cave. The barely formed arm defense had not yet formed, and it was already intertwined with the sword light. The wind whistled up from the ground, blowing the 3 lanterns and rolling over the eaves of the 8-story building. Hong Fan stood facing the river, his body was as tall as a wall, carrying the sky and the moon on his back. The golden knife dissipated at his fingertips. The water curtain returned to the river channel. With a snap, a black shadow fell to the ground. Everyone looked closely, but it was a large bundle of hair entangled by a hairpin. The severe pain woke Bai Taiping from the frozen sense of danger. He stroked his temples, and the hair was still there. When he touched the top of his head again, he saw that his hands were full of bright red. Bai Taiping realized that his scalp had been cut off by the knife just now. After snapping his fingers, a huge roar of laughter came down from upstairs. This, Bai Taiping's lips trembled, and the humiliation in his heart was beyond words. On the contrary, Jiang Wenbo, who had broken his beloved sword, felt inexplicably relieved when he saw the Mediterranean Sea below that could not be covered. Quicksand was like the wind, returning to each potted plant and mixing with humus for the second time. What a noble and graceful figure, I've seen it. Hong Fan turned around and bowed, smiling. Go back and pour more water into the flower pot, it won't die, he casually told Feng Su on the sidelines and prepared to leave. Then he was stopped by a hysterical roar. Don't leave, you haven't won yet, it was Bai Taiping. Hong Fan looked back at him and pointed at the hair on the ground. The meaning was very clear. The knife just now could cut a bun, and naturally it could also cut a neck. Hair is hair, scalp is scalp. Bai Taiping clenched his fist and said in a trembling voice. The rock classic, which has been handed down from generation to generation in my Bai family, is the most solid. Even if you hit me in the vitals with that blow just now, I might not be in any danger, he argued. Hong Fan smiled and shook his head. Okay, he stopped and walked back to Taizhong. As promised, Zhu Gu, who ranks 542nd on the evil list and has practiced the Iron Sea performance to the state of heaven and man, was beheaded by me with one blow when he was exerting all his strength, Hong Fan said loudly. Bai Taiping's face turned pale. Since you are not convinced, let's do it again. This time I'll chop your neck. If you die, I'll take out a coffin. If you are not dead, we'll fight again. Hong Fan pulled out a stream of sand from the bottom of the water under the stage and condensed it into a blade. Bai Taiping's face turned pale, his lips trembled, and he couldn't speak. What? Are you scared? Hong Fan raised his chin slightly. Are you pretending to be deaf and dumb at this time? Well, if you say I'm scared now, you lose. Otherwise, stretch your neck to take my blow. The golden sword pointed forward, and the question was like thunder. Bai Taiping was terrified. Just when the whole building was silent, a sneer came from upstairs. You always compete with AO's Hijian words and deeds, but you were defeated by 104 meridians with one sword. If I were you, why would I retreat? I will find a beam to hang myself tonight to save Mr. Bai from embarrassment. The voice was soft, sharp and bright, like the finest brocade. But the tone was so contemptuous that it was even arrogant. Hong Fan looked up and saw that the gauze curtain on the left wing of the fourth floor was lifted by a bare hand, revealing a slender figure. This was a beauty. A unique snow-white beauty that stunned him. She was 18 or 19 years old, 1.8 meters tall, only less than an inch shorter than Hong Fan. Hair like white silk, skin like white snow, clothes like white clouds. In the plainness, only the eyes are as dark as ink, and the shallow glance can see straight into the heart of the heart. For a moment, I don't know how many children of noble families wanted to sacrifice their lives to become the white pearl hairpin on her ear. Where did this snow elf come from? Hong Fan lowered his sand knife unconsciously. He had seen many AI beauties in his previous life, but none of them could compare to her. Bai Taiping, who had just been stubborn, heard this voice and saw this person, but he whimpered and spit out blood. He was so ashamed that he ran away. Behind Bai Miran, there was another laugh. Hong Fan looked carefully and saw that there were two people accompanying her at the table. One was a girl who was covering her mouth and laughing, with black hair, red lips, seductive eyes, and exaggerated curves. The other was a young man, tall and strong, with a high nose and deep eyes, and cheeks like a knife cut by an axe. Hong Fan looked at him, and the sand whirled in the upper dantian immediately felt it. It was the same feeling of restlessness from earlier. This person, like me, controls the fate star. Hong Fan suddenly realized. My sister is here too. A male voice came from the fourth floor. It was Liu Xingxin, who had been watching the show, leaning on the railing with both hands, greeting him flatteringly. Why, do you have any objections? The white beauty replied with a glare. You can see the courtesan, but I can't. This was a provocative remark, but Liu Xingxin was not angry at all. Instead he showed weakness. How dare I? I was just thinking that if my sister wanted to come, she should have told me at least. Wouldn't it be better to sit in the middle? He smiled apologetically. Humph, if I want to take the first place, how can it be your turn? The white-haired girl asked back. Liu Xingxin was embarrassed and shut up. Then, the girl looked at Hong Fan. Are you from Jinhei? She asked. Yes, Hong Fan replied. Hey, you are from a small place, but you are handsome. The white-haired girl smiled, and many people were fascinated by her beauty. Then she added another sentence. Your face is no worse than Feng Su's. The nobles laughed when they heard this. Hong Fan also laughed, but he was not annoyed. Thank you for the compliment, young lady. In terms of appearance alone, I am far inferior to you. You are 3 points more beautiful than Feng Su." The whole audience was silent. The girl on the 4th floor was stunned, and Feng Su under the stage turned pale. From Liu Xingxin to Zhang Wenbei, everyone looked a little stern, as if they were worried that the girl would be angry. Hong Fan saw it and made up his mind. The previous performance of everyone might be due to admiration for her beauty. But now this can only come from a powerful family. Hong Fan realized that this white-haired girl was probably the young lady mentioned by Yuan Zusong. But he was not panicked. He came forward today, firstly because he didn't want Zhang Yuanzi to be injured, and secondly because he wanted to defend the honor of the Tiki. Even if he was the #1 playboy in Zijing, he couldn't touch him just because of a quarrel. "You don't know me." The white-haired girl was not angry, but curious. "I don't know." Hong Fan shook his head. "Huh." The girl smiled and looked down. "My name is Shen Tixin, the legitimate granddaughter of 10,000 feet of condensed ice Shen Maya. Do you know how to be afraid now? The Shen family is the first family in Zijing, even before the Liu family." Hong Fan has also heard of the name of 10,000 feet of condensed ice ranked 31st on the Earth list, which is considered to be in the middle among the heavenly beings. Yeah, explanation of relatives says, the son of the son is the grandson, the son of the grandson is the great-grandson, the son of the great-grandson is the great-great-grandson, and the son of the great-great-grandson is the great-great-grandson. The great-great-grandson is the 6th generation. But Hong Fan remained calm. "I don't know what I should be afraid of," he asked calmly. "You are not only outstanding in appearance, but also have guts," Shen Tixin praised. "Am I the only one in this building who has guts?" Hong Fan laughed loudly. "My headmaster's life wheel ranks 2nd on the heavenly ranking, and the Liangzhou governor's heavenly secrets ranks 59th on the earthly ranking. This does not affect Mr. Zhang Wenbei's contempt for our Hangwu Academy." This loud voice went with the wind and actually floated halfway across the river. Zhang Wenbei's face turned green and his fingers trembled, as if he was poisoned. Just as Hong Fan did not think that the ancestors of the Shen family would take action because Shen Tixin was disobeyed, young Master Zhang also knew that Guan Qimei and Su Guinian, the Liangzhou governor, would not trouble him for such a trivial matter. But when he returns home today, a family discipline is inevitable. Shen Tixin just sneered when he heard it. "You are quite eloquent." She stopped talking, lowered the curtain, and turned to leave. P.S. Many readers must hope that the daily content is like today. But the sense of satisfaction does not only come from the protagonist's outfit, but also from the foreshadowing of the environment and the repressed pull of emotions. Without the character description starting from Liu Xingxin getting off the car, the effect of the face slap would be much worse. Without the Mingyu Tower's architectural design and explanation, the final description of the instant step and the sword would not have come out. It takes time to lay out the background and introduce characters for each new volume. The first volume of this book has not been completed yet, and the character list already has more than 100 entries. The second volume has only been written now, and there is a foundation for the effort. Chapter 241 Willfulness. The gauze curtain rolled up. The sensations of the sand world completely subsided. After Shen Tixin left, the hearts of the children of the noble family seemed to have lost a weight. The discussion became more and more unbridled. On the side of the stage, the courtesan's hydrangea lay quietly. Today's turmoil was caused by it, but no one cares at this moment. But since things have come to this, there must be a period. "Everyone," Hong Fan pointed at the hydrangea and asked loudly. "Since I have won 2 battles, the hydrangea of Feng Su has a home. Is there anyone who is dissatisfied?" No one spoke. Hong Fan nodded and asked the second question. "Those who want to say something about this Hangwu Academy and the Tiki, are there any others?" The voice was low and rolled up from the bottom to the top. Hong Fan stood in the middle of the stage and swept across the 3 pavilions with his eyes. Everyone he saw remembered the thunder just now. The 4 meridians were completely cut as fast as lightning, severing the communication between heaven and man. This killing method is not only exaggerated, but also a little horrible. Maybe it was because of the Star of Destiny, or maybe Bai Taiping was just a fool. But no matter how many reasons he found, the man standing in the audience had a weight that could not be concealed. Therefore, except for a few people like Liu Xingxin, most of the children of the noble families turned their eyes away and dared not look at him. In Mingyu Tower, there was only the sound of the river. Seeing his teammate's majestic appearance at the moment, Bai Jiasi felt a tightness in his throat and a hate in his chest. But Hong Fan remained calm. Beating Bai Taiping was far from enough to make all the nobles in the room obey him. It's just that the matter had become too big and would inevitably spread throughout the city. At this time, no matter what the original intention was, it would inevitably be like stepping on the martial arts academy. The governor and the governor were competing fiercely. At this stage, anyone would have to think twice before doing anything. Mr. Jiang, please return the 1,000 lying silver note to my seat, Hong Fan said to the third floor of the main building. Then, he nodded to Master Lu Yun and turned around and went upstairs. The stage was empty. On the thick carpet, only the cut made by the sand knife was still dazzling. Master Lu Yun glanced at the hydrangea, then looked at Feng Su, whose face was dim and eyes were tearful, gritted his teeth, and followed Hong Fan. Every year, there is a flower show, and every night, there are fish and dragon dances. Only this year, there is less beauty and more swords. The banquet was over. Jiang Wenbei paid the bill, got into the carriage as if escaping, took a piece of clothing from the cabinet, and stuffed it into his pants first. The other guests went out in twos and threes, eager to go home and share what they saw and heard today. Hong Fan and his companions walked out of Wangjiang Alley. The splendor was hidden in the high-rise building, and the stars and the moon were more prominent. The river breeze blew, and it was actually a good night. When Bai Taiping was leaving, I was so nervous that my clothes were wet, Yuan Zusong sighed. Then you cut off her hair with a knife? I was about to cheer loudly, but then I saw that lady jumping out from a corner. I almost got internal injuries. Who said it wasn't? Bai Jiaxu was still frightened. Such a beautiful woman, with such a great background, but I met her in a brothel. I never thought I would, and never saw her before. I can guess why she came, Yan Yulin smiled. This year, it is rumored that the 3 Huiyins are beauties that appear once every 10 years, and the first one to appear will surpass all the previous ones. It's so confusing, combined with Feng Su's unique performance tonight, it is probably a business method to build momentum in advance, but do you know that lady is also known as the most beautiful woman in the world? The 4 words "the most beautiful woman in the world" made everyone look at her sideways. Of course, this is an exaggeration, Yan Yulin continued. There are at least 5 or 6 people who are the best in Dahua Jiazhao, if not 7 or 8. Anyway, no one can gather these beauties together to compare them, but in Zhejiang City, Shen Tixun is definitely the best. Hong Fan believed this. Among the women he had seen, Wu Ruai and Zhang Fuqiu were both extremely outstanding beauties. Feng Su, dressed in a gorgeous dress, was even better than these 2. However, when these 3 people were put together with Shen Tixun, the difference was obvious at first glance. That's right, no wonder she wanted to talk about Feng Su, Zhang Yuanzi suddenly said. Mingyu Tower has done something wrong. There are many more strange things about this lady, Yuan Zusong said. You may have heard that when a warrior reaches the Yuanzi realm, his 5 internal organs are tempered by the innate spiritual energy, and the external manifestations will also change. Hearing this, Hong Fan suddenly thought of Hong Jian after he forcibly broke through the Yuanzi. At that time, his beard and hair turned orange-red. The Shen family practiced the Ice Soul Classic, and after reaching the Yuanzi, their hair and beards turned white, and their skin became whiter than snow, Yuan Zusong was hinting. You mean, this change can be passed on to future generations? Hong Fan guessed what he meant. Exactly, Yuan Zusong snapped his fingers. The probability of this happening is extremely low. Once it happens, it means that they are naturally compatible with the innate spiritual energy. How do you say that? This is not just a matter of good or bad talent. It means that as long as Shen Tixun practices the Ice Soul Classic, she can break into the key realm without any effort. As long as, Hong Fan was surprised and asked back. I said as long as because this lady is willful and doesn't want to practice martial arts no matter what. Yuan Zusong shook his head and sighed. The others were stunned. She can easily become an innate master, but she refuses to practice. What kind of operation is this? So although the Shen family is big, she is the only one who is special. Yan Yulin's words were full of envy. The lifespan of the peak of the key realm is up to 180. The warriors who can reach the realm of heaven and man are either very old or obsessed with martial arts. They often do not care about blood relatives, so there is a saying that heaven and man are ruthless. The ancestor of the Shen family has 7 generations of descendants, and there are countless direct descendants. It is said that by the 3rd generation, they can no longer recognize all their names, but he loves this granddaughter very much. He gives her everything she wants, he said at the end. Feeling quite sour. Isn't this strange? Zhang Yuanzi said. If I had a granddaughter or great-granddaughter who looked so powerful, I would definitely hold them in my heart. Everyone thought for a while and nodded. Do you know the two people behind Shen Tixin? At this time, Hong Fan suddenly asked. How can I not know them? They are all famous figures in Zijing, Yuan Zusong replied. You must have all heard of Ao Fu Wei, the leader of the Fubo gang and a top-level Xiantian expert. He has a son and a daughter. His son Ao Siji is on the list of Xianjiao, and everyone knows him. The one behind Shen Tixin with a plump chest and charming eyes is his daughter, named Ao Sixin. He gestured with his hands in front of his chest. The other one next to him is Ao Sixin's lover. He was originally a concubine of the Su family in Zijing, and no one paid attention to him, but now it's different, Yuan Zusong said, and suddenly looked at Hong Fan. Because he became a Star Lord? The latter gave the answer. Brother Hong obviously knows him, but you still ask? Yan Yulin smiled. I didn't know him before, Hong Fan shook his head. It's just that when I saw him today, the sand world felt it. The fate star is really magical. Yan Yulin was amazed. This person is called Su Pi Fen, his fate star is called Jiling Xiang, and he also has the name Red-Faced God. Chapter 242 Red-Faced God. Red-Faced God, Hong Fan recalled Su Pi Fen, whose skin was neither black nor white, let alone red, and could not understand the meaning of this nickname for a while. But he found that the people in the first team were a little dignified when they mentioned this name. This name has a history. Yuan Zusong's voice was a little heavy. Su Pi Feng has never been taken seriously in the clan. Later, he got the fate star and got a problem of going crazy when seeing blood. When he fights against someone, once he attacks, he almost always kills someone. I won't talk about those methods. In short, after each victory or defeat, this person's face will be stained with blood. Hong Fan frowned when he heard it. It is said that he was influenced by the fate star. Yan Yulin suddenly interrupted. Brother Hong, do you remember what we asked you about the fate star to capture souls and improve strength? He looked at Hong Fan. Since you were like this, he must be like this too. The so-called going crazy at the sight of blood does not necessarily mean that one has really lost his mind, but just making an excuse to be ruthless. The street was silent. Yan Yulin spoke softly, scaring away a few rats in the corner. Unknowingly, the group had walked half of the West City. Yan and Yuan were going to continue to the south, and the others were going to the east. Everyone said goodbye. After getting on the Xianzhen Bridge, Zhang Yuanzi felt the atmosphere was getting dull. He realized that since leaving Mingyu Tower, Master Lu Yun had been silent all the way. The long bridge was soon left behind. Chari Mansion was in the east, and Lu Mansion was in the south. After crossing the bridge, the four people had to part ways. The long street went east, and no one turned right at the first fork. The second fork was also passed. At the third fork, Master Lu Yun's steps were slightly disordered, but he still followed. Finally, Hong Fan stopped first in a secluded place on the street. Master Yun, if we go further, we will reach King Lian Lane. Are you going to stay at my house tonight? You are used to life and death. Is it so difficult to say a few words? He said with a smile. Master Lu Yun's face was dry, and he could only speak, but his tongue was still tied. Under the moonlight, his face turned red, and he finally said it in one sentence after a long while. I lost my mind today and caused so much trouble for everyone. Hong Fan shook his head and patted Master Lu Yun on the shoulder. If we talk about the biggest trouble tonight, how can it be our turn? He comforted. The biggest trouble is obviously Bai Taiping. Let's not talk about the embarrassment. He lost his hair and he will have to wear a hat for a few months, right? Zhang Yuanzi laughed at this, and Master Lu Yun couldn't help but curl his lips. The next biggest one should be Feng Su, Hong Fan continued. I don't know how many beauties in Mingyu Tower were defeated to become Huaiyan, and I don't know how much effort was spent to prepare for the flower appreciation meeting. She was obviously the most beautiful woman and was about to reach the top, but she was robbed of the limelight, and was ridiculed by Shen Tixin, and finally even the hydrangea was thrown aside and no one cared about it. He said here and sighed. If someone mentions the Zijing flower appreciation meeting in the 28th year of Zheng in the future, the flower oozer will become a supporting role that is not worth mentioning. Zhang Yuanzi was stunned when he heard this. That's the truth. He and Bai Jiasi thought about it at this time and realized that Feng Su is so miserable. From the results, we are the only ones who have not lost anything, Hong Fan continued. You got the prize of the flower oozer, and I got a great reputation. As he said, He saw that Master Lu Yun's face was slightly relieved, and finally changed the subject. But Master Yun still needs to take today's incident as a warning. Although his voice was light, his meaning was heavy. In fact, when I rushed to help at Kifeng Mountain, I brought an order from my superiors. The original words were, if Master Lu Yun is desperate to save people, you will take over the command of the first team with a token, and then wait for reinforcements. The ancients said that a lack of patience will ruin a great plan. This kind of thing must never happen again. As the night deepened, there was no one in the side street. Under the moonlight, there were only 4 people and 4 shadows. Master Lu Yun was silent for a moment, and sighed. I will accept your advice, he said solemnly, and bowed deeply to Hong Fan first. Tonight, Brother Zun spoke for justice, and I will remember it in my heart. After Master Lu Yun finished speaking, he bowed deeply to Zhang Yuanzi. Finally, he nodded to Bai Jiasi as a courtesy, turned around and left, with a relaxed step. The Milky Way framed the sky, and the shadows of clouds passed by in the dark. The door of Chori Mansion opened and closed. The 3 people in Hong Fan went back to their rooms. Some practiced, some painted. Everything was silent, only the frogs kept croaking. In the wing room, Bai Jiasi lay on the bed, unable to fall asleep, his mind repeatedly flashing back to the scenes of tonight. Master Lu Yun grabbed the ball, Zhang Yuanzi scolded, Hong Fan took action. Even Yan Yulin and Yuanzu Songhai slammed the table and stood up. Only one person did not dare to move from beginning to end. Bai Jiasi clenched his fists, no longer willing to think about it. But his mind could not stop. The night was long, and he sketched again and again. Sketching a Bai Jiasi who was exactly the same as himself in terms of cultivation, appearance, and family background, who could look down on power and risk his life, until his nails were driven into his palms, until the blood dyed the straw mat under him red. Outside the window, roosters crowed 3 times. The sky was bright. 7 days later, July 14th. It was just 7 days after the beginning of autumn, and the season was between heatstroke and the end of heat, which was the hottest time of the year. The busy farming season in Jinhei City was approaching, and all the major clans were repairing the granaries. Yesterday morning, Hong Pan led the caravan back from Zijing, and entered the city with Hong Lai and Hong Fu. All kinds of trivial matters took up a day. For lunch today, he took Hong Shi to meet Qi Zihuigan at Jinfeng Tower, and then went back to the mansion to bathe and change clothes. At 2 p.m., in the study of Xiong Guanggian, the red-clothed riders were on guard outside. 4 people gathered together. Except for Hong Pan, the other 3 were the current heads of the Jinhei Hong family. Hong Wu was wearing a brocade robe and sat in the main seat. Hong Sheng had a black beard and his facial injuries could no longer be seen. Hong Li sat back in the armchair and rubbed his thigh. The new garrison is named Huang, and he has the innate 3-in-1 cultivation. Hong Wu talked about the recent situation in the city. This person is proficient in military strategy, but he is very power-hungry and doesn't get along well with Achin. Is there any hindrance? Hong Pan asked. It's not a hindrance, just a little unpleasant. It was Hong Sheng who answered. In today's Jinhei City, if Hu Shebai really wants to do something, he will inevitably have to rely on us, he said lightly, his back straight, sitting steadily. Everything is fine in the clan, there is nothing to worry about. Hong Li took over and waved his hand. It's mainly about Zijing, he paused and said casually. How is Hong Fan? Brother Fan is fine, Hong Pan replied with a subtle expression. It's even a little too good. What do you mean? Hong Wu frowned and his voice became heavier. On the other side, Hong Li thought of Hong Pan's seriousness in arranging the meeting, and he sat up straight unconsciously, even forgetting the pain in his legs. I'm not saying it in a sarcastic way, Hong Pan explained immediately. I came back this time because I really have something important to tell you. Brother Fan has started a business with another family. You scared me for nothing. Hong Li took a long breath, took the teacup from the table, and leaned back in his chair. But the business is losing money, he asked casually. Not only did we not lose money, we made a lot of money, Hong Pan replied. A lot of money? How much? Hong Sheng raised his eyebrows and asked back. Hong Pan opened his hand to him. 500,000 taels a year, net profit. A violent cough sounded. It turned out that Huang Li had swallowed a mouthful of water into his nose and almost fell off the armchair. Chapter 243 Account. Hong Li put the teacup back on the table, used the fire flow to steam the clothes dry, and brushed off the half-burned tea leaves. Hong Pan explained in detail. The He family is responsible for the operation. Duke Zhuang is the boss, and Brother Fan provides the technology. At present, Cheyenne Bank's business is limited to the marrow cleansing pills, with a monthly production capacity of 1,500 pills and an annual net profit of over 500,000 strings of cash. Brother Fan has a 20% stake in it, and the monthly dividend is nearly 10,000 strings of cash. Of course, on the surface, it is the instrument works supervisor and the He family who are in charge, and no one knows about his involvement. He finished speaking in one breath and waited for the three people's reaction. But they didn't react for a while. Or they didn't know how to react. If this is true, 10,000 strings of cash a month is too exaggerated. However, no matter how exaggerated the matter is, it seems very true when Hong Fan's name is added. Are you telling the truth just now? Hong Li asked in a stunned voice. Hong Pan nodded repeatedly. Well, it's Brother Fan after all, so Hong Li also nodded. After all, he is the one who was chosen by Zulong and can create the first-class killing method in the pure realm. It is normal for him to earn 10,000 taels a month in Zhaijing after 3 months. He looked around at everyone and tried to smile, but his mind was in a mess and he couldn't smile. Jinhe is too small and the Hong family is too weak. 3 months is too short and 500,000 is too much? It was so much that this old man in his 60s, who was used to killing snake people, could hardly suppress his fear. After a while, Hong Wu spoke slowly. The clan has about 30,000 taels of cash, counting the fields, grains and houses in Jinhe and Zhaijing. There are probably 230,000 or 240,000 taels of wealth. This business can earn back half of the Hong family in a year, he stated, his tone still a little floating. As for Hong Sheng, who was sitting next to him, he could no longer suppress his emotions and clenched his fists. Uncle Wu, it's not just a matter of money, this business is about the marrow cleansing pill, he exclaimed. Pure realm martial arts resources have always been scarce in Jinhe. If not, why would Hong Sheng waste so much time in Hunrun realm? In the study, the panting sound was heavy for a while. Okay, I've recovered a little. After a while, Hong Li broke the silence. Hong Fan sent you back, I guess there must be a reason. You finish first. He poured a cup of tea for Hong Pan. There is a rule. The latter carefully organized his words and spoke. Brother Fan said that starting from August, he can give at least 50 marrow cleansing pills to the clan every month. In addition, he plans to provide 2,000 taels per month to the martial arts disciples in the clan to purchase martial arts resources. The remaining monthly income will be temporarily kept in the Cheyenne Bank account. If necessary in the future, more can be allocated. Hong Pan finished speaking in one breath. Even though he had known about this for a long time, he was still overwhelmed. 50 cleansing marrow pills can satisfy the cultivation needs of more than a dozen people in the pure realm. 2,000 taels of silver, according to the highest standard, can also supply 60 or 70 people in the passing through realm. Hong Wu knocked on the wooden armrest with his knuckles, and hissed and leaked air when he spoke, as if he had a charcoal fire under his tongue. Not counting Hong Wu, who is in harmony with heaven and man, the Hong family now has a total of 7 pure realm people. Among them, Hong Sheng is at the peak of pure realm, Hong Li has exhausted his potential, and minus Hong Fan, who does not occupy the resources of the family, there are only 4 people in total who can use cleansing marrow pills, and there is still plenty of room. In addition, this money can not only enrich resources, having money also means that more potential children can leave their jobs. For example, Hong Lai and Hong Bo both have a lot of time occupied by the executive. If they can practice with all their strength and use up the pills, it is not impossible to reach the pure realm within half a year or a year. Second brother, it's only been 3 months since I went to Zhaijing. Hong Sheng became more and more excited as he thought about it, and his voice became louder. In 3 months, I have Cheyenne hexing, so wouldn't I be able to dominate the world in 3 years? In another 10 years, I should be able to conquer the world. He slammed his fist on the chair. Hong Wu also smiled upon hearing this, and whispered, "Don't blame me for being a hindsighter. When I saw him last August, I thought that Brother Fan looked like a king. Be careful what you say." Hong Li immediately scolded him, but his heart was still burning. What else does Hong Fan have to say? He calmed down and asked again. There is one more thing, Hong Pan replied. Brother Fan wants the clan to come up with a plan for the distribution of rewards and punishments. Every penny of the money he sent back must be used on the cutting edge, not for the big pot. He said this in a serious voice. Of course, otherwise how can we be fair to him? Hong Li replied loudly. You haven't left these few days. Let's first work out a few things. The conversation deepened and the voices gradually became lower. The four people in the room suppressed their emotions and cut off their distracting thoughts. First of all, the distribution of rewards and punishments for this money, Hong Wu said to Hong Pan. We'll come up with a plan, and you'll bring it back to Brother Fan, and let him make the final decision. By the way, the name of the marrow cleansing pill must be kept secret, he said, looking at Hong Sheng. Just make up a name and say it was purchased from Hezhao. Unless one of you two has reached the peak of innateness, you can't reveal it. Secondly, it's the cooperation with Cheyenne Bank, Hong Li interrupted. What is his plan for management, accounts, etc.? For the time being, it's all managed by the He family. Brother Fan may not have time to take care of it, Hong Pan replied. That must be the case, Hong Li nodded. Martial arts training is always the first priority. Although this business is big, if Hong Fan spends all his time on it, it would be putting the cart before the horse. But Cheyenne Bank can't just let it go. He changed the subject again. The company has just started, and everyone from the manager to the clerk still has a sense of awe in their hearts, so there won't be any trouble. Wait half a year or a year, humph, if you only keep the shares without intervening in the business, there will definitely be problems. By then, the business may become bigger and bigger. But the dividends may become smaller and smaller. This is a matter of experience, and everyone nodded. But the opposite is the He family of Zijing. Hong Pan was a little embarrassed. Except for Brother Fan himself, it is difficult for us to get involved in the affairs of Cheyenne Bank. Of course I know. Hong Li stood up and limped around the room. Who in the clan has the power to manage and check the personnel of the He family and the accounts of Duke Zhuang? He stopped and asked. No one now, but it may not be the case in a few years, Hong Sheng said calmly. That's what I mean, Hong Li smiled. Planning is the key to success, so we need to make plans early. We need to send more people to Zijing, and set up a pigeon line with Jin He. You need to be the one who is concerned about Cheyenne Hexing's business. Hong Pan's face turned solemn when he heard this. Hong Li nodded with satisfaction. Finally, there is one more thing. The clan needs to give Hong Fan an explanation. He paused and spoke to Hong Wu, with great solemnity. I suggest that from today on, all the clan's financial, personnel, and everyone's cultivation progress from top to bottom should be compiled into a document every month and reported to Zijing Chori Mansion. P.S. The energy accumulated some time ago seemed to have been used up yesterday afternoon, so it was a bit difficult to write. There should be another chapter later. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244 Heartwaves. The next day, afternoon. Chori Mansion in Zijing. The side garden, the endless summer is still flourishing. The pond water is green, with ripples. Flowers fall with the wind, bloom in the center of the waves, blurring the reflection of the people in the pavilion. On the stone table, carefully copied papers are scattered. Hong Fan checked them one by one and browsed the contents again. This time the article is very thick, about geometric optics and Gaussian optics. The former contains 4 basic laws of light propagation. The law of rectilinear propagation of light. Light propagates in a straight line in a uniform medium. The law of independent propagation of light. When 2 beams of light meet during propagation, they do not interfere with each other and continue to propagate along their own paths, and when the 2 beams of light converge at the same point, the light energy at that point is simply added. The law of reflection and refraction. When light encounters a smooth interface between 2 different media during propagation, one part is reflected and the other part is refracted. The principle of reversibility of optical path. No matter how many times a beam of light starts from a point and undergoes reflection and refraction, if it encounters an interface reflection at a right angle to the beam at the end, the beam must return to the starting point accurately along the original path. Then, it was the Gaussian optics that Hong Fan had touched upon in the high school physics competition and physics courses. Gaussian optics is the ideal optical system. That is, for an optical system in which each point in a sufficiently large space can form a perfect and ideal image with a sufficiently wide beam, it can be mathematically reduced to the problem of collinear transformation or collinear imaging. At the end of the theory, Hong Fan also gave a sketch of a relatively modern optical microscope structure. Most of the above written content has been mastered by the instrument supervisor, and some are even the work results of Zhuang Liren. but it is also of great significance for the integration and review of the theoretical system. After finishing the article, Hong Fan carefully bound it and planned to send it to Zhuang Liren tomorrow. Then, he took out a piece of paper, ground the ink, and wrote the title with a brush. July 15th, the 28th year of Zheng, Jinhe Hongfen respectfully wrote to His Excellency Gong Heng. This was a letter that was agreed upon last year. After writing hundreds of words, Hong Fan wrote down the address of Chori Prefecture and signed his name at the end. Then he fetched the wax, softened it with the power of the flame, and sealed the envelope. He also called Tang Dajie to find a reliable messenger to send the letter. Everything was settled. Hong Fan went back to his room, changed into his martial arts uniform, and went to the martial arts arena. As soon as he entered the back garden, he saw Zhan Yuanzi moving a table outside the house and painting from a distance. Hong Fan, come and see my painting. Zhan Yuanzi heard the footsteps and looked up. Hong Fan leaned over to take a look. The ink marks on the paper did not depict the scenery in the garden, but a gorgeous pavilion. Behind the carved railing, the veil was lifted up, and the woman lowered her head to look down. Do you recognize it? Zhan Yuanzi asked, with an expectant tone. Shen Tixin, Hong Fan answered. Painters love to paint beautiful scenery. Shen Tixin is undoubtedly beautiful. You really recognize it? Is it the person who is painted like it? Zhan Yuanzi asked again. It's the pavilion that is painted like it, Hong Fan answered truthfully. I guess so, Zhan Yuanzi sighed. This Miss Shen is dressed in white and has white hair. Since I saw her, I have wanted to draw some of her essence, but maybe it's limited by the technique, maybe it's limited by the color, or maybe she's too beautiful. No matter how I try, it's not good enough. He put down his brush and ink. Forget it, I'll practice sword with you. The sun was blazing and the wind was hot. The two of them used the iron hand and Shiangxin sword techniques respectively. They each practiced a few times and sweated a little, gradually getting into the groove. At this time, a voice that was warmer than the summer wind suddenly came from the side of the martial arts field. What a coincidence, you are all here. It was Bai Jiasi who had just returned. Hong and Zhan looked in the direction of the voice and were a little surprised. Since the flower show, Bai Jiasi has always been worried. He hasn't smiled so happily at this moment for a long time. Why are you so happy? You came to find us to tell us as soon as you came back, Hong Fan asked with a smile. How could I find anyone? I just came to practice boxing, Bai Jiasi argued and changed the subject. Guess who I saw in the flower dew shop today? He asked anxiously. The white-haired lady from the Shen family, Hong Fan guessed casually. Bai Jiasi shook his head. Feng Su, Zhan Yuanzi guessed again. How could these two people come to buy flower dew in person? It's better for us to deliver the goods to them. Bai Jiasi waved his hands repeatedly. It was the young lady Hongli who ordered tea for us that day. He smiled and revealed the answer, saying happily. Then, he found that the eyes of his two teammates were slightly mischievous. Just a casual remark, just a casual remark. Bai Jiasi immediately put away his smile and pretended to practice boxing, only to find that he couldn't move his legs. It turned out that the long gown of Dahuapo on his body had not been changed into martial arts uniform. Hong and Zhan both laughed. Bai Jiasi blushed, and had to put away his boxing stance in dismay, and fled the martial arts arena with a wry smile. The sun rose and the moon set, and half a month passed in the blink of an eye. The 28th year of Zheng, the first day of August. The 3 summers are gone, and the long summer is about to end. At noon, in the study of Chori Mansion. This plan was drafted by Sheng Ye, and your 4 uncles added some polishing. Hong Pan, who had just returned from Jinhe, said. Of course, you have to read it before you decide. Across the desk, Hong Fan read it carefully, not missing a word. It's already thorough enough. After half a cup of tea, he smiled. After all, there are only a few hundred people in the clan. After getting a long day and night, it's not difficult to judge who is diligent and who is lax. In addition, for those above 100, since there is no shortage of cleansing marrow pills, they will be allocated according to demand for the time being. Hong Fan closed the letter, put it aside, and opened the wax seal of the second copy. This is the current situation of the clan, Hong Pan explained. From now on, Jinhe will report to you every month on finance, personnel, and everyone's martial arts practice progress. I will also arrange the pigeon route between the 2 cities, and it will be ready before the end of the year. Hong Fan nodded when he heard this, and saw that there was one more name in the Hunrin item than he expected. Brother, she has entered the realm of utter chaos. When did it happen? He asked. In July. I took him to meet his future father-in-law and arranged his marriage with Yu, Hong Pan answered calmly, unable to suppress the curled corners of his mouth. This is really double happiness, Hong Fan congratulated, joy from the heart. The Hong family and he are already one. In the future, whether in Zhejiang or Shenzhen, when he needs to build his own team, the children of the Jinhe Hong family will be the best arms. At the end of the second memorial, there was also a rough prediction made by Hong Li. In 3 years, the level of penetration in the family is expected to exceed 100, and the level of utter chaos can even double. After reading the 2 memorials, Hong Fan remained calm. Finally, there was a letter signed by 6 senior executives of the Hong family. There were no fancy words in the letter. But Hong Fan was finally moved after reading the whole text. This is a letter of authorization. The senior executives of the Hong family jointly signed in the letter, granting Hong Fan the private right to directly mobilize this Huai cavalry without reporting and approval. Chapter 245 Half the weight. This is the common opinion of the clan, Hong Pan's voice was heard. As long as you need it, whether you draw 10, 20, or 30 people from the Red Cavalry, who to deal with and how to deal with it are all up to you, except for your Uncle Wei who was still in Shakao Guard Station at that time. The remaining 6 of us all signed our agreement. Upon hearing this, Hong Fan felt that the thin paper in his hand weighed 1,000 pounds. For him now, a single Guantong realm warrior is not worth mentioning. But if this number is expanded by dozens of times, and they are well equipped and well trained, the meaning is completely different. Take the 30 Red Cavalry as an example. If there is an intelligence advantage, under the command of Hong Fan, it is highly likely that they will not fail to surround and kill a low-level innate master. Such authority can be said to exceed that of a family head in the general sense. The Red Cavalry has 2 leaders, Hong Sheng is the chief and Hong Ming is the deputy. Even Hong Wu could not ignore these 2 people and mobilize half of the people to work for him with just 1 sentence. Because of this, Hong Fan hesitated. Uncle Pan, this is a bit like gambling. He put down the letter and looked at Hong Pan. However, the other party's eyes were more determined than his. It's the fortune of my Jinhe Hong family that has come. How can it be a gamble? Hong Pan said seriously. Brother Fan, although you are young, your ideas are more correct than anyone else, not only in cultivation, even in terms of knowing people and doing things. The uncles and uncles in the family are not qualified to guide you, so we are relieved to give you this responsibility, he said sincerely. Hong Fan finally nodded, and the flames in his hand surged, burning the letter paper to ashes. After talking about the 3 major things above, there are 2 more things you decided after coming to Zhejiang, Hong Pan continued. The first thing is about Shenzhen inheriting the title of clan leader in State Guard. Your Uncle Wu is 45 this year, and his martial arts cultivation has been stuck for 9 years. I'm afraid he has no ability to move up, so according to his idea, once Shenzhen breaks into the realm of heaven and man, he will hold a clan meeting in the ancestral hall to give up the position of clan leader. Hong Fan heard this and had no objection. In terms of contribution to the family, he far exceeds Hong Sheng. With a fate star in his body, it doesn't matter whether he is a legitimate son or a concubine. It's just that Hong Fan can't take the position of clan leader. Because he doesn't want to live in Jinhe for a long time. The head of a clan represents power and honor, but also has to take on routine duties and exercise decision-making. It's meaningless to establish a clan leader who is not on the clan all year round and can't be found when needed. In addition, the edict from the capital in June was delivered. In addition to praise, some gold, silver and silk were also given, or there may be a follow-up, Hong Pan said again. In the first battle at the beginning of the year, the contribution of the clan was witnessed by the whole city. The snake general who was promoted to the 6th sacrifice was also killed by the clan leader at the risk of his life. With this foundation, your Uncle Wu and others want to use some methods to see if it is possible to raise the title. This is actually a trivial matter. The annual salary of the State Guard lieutenant is 400 dan, and the next level of general is only 600 dan. The difference of 100 taels in annual salary is a drop in the bucket for the Hong family, and some honors are not worth mentioning. The status of the Dahua family, in the final analysis, depends on martial arts. But a long-buried doubt in Hong Fan's heart rose again. What is Zulong's attitude towards the fight between aliens and humans? Protecting the land and the people, stationing troops on the border, dispatching strong men, post-war pensions. From the perspective of Hong Fan as a time traveler, the Dahua court seems to be quite lacking in the above aspects. He did not mention this to Hong Pan. Dahua has been here for 300 years, and since it has come this far, there is no need for a person in the Hunran realm to worry about the future. After talking about a few important things, Hong Pan's face relaxed. He picked up the teacup, took the first sip of tea, and then talked about the other trivial arrangements. There are 10 people coming back with me this time. They were specially sent by the clan and are still with me now. The leaders are 2 people who have mastered the art, Shen Hong from the 3rd team of the red-clothed cavalry, and Hong Ji from the 1st team. They each brought 4 old soldiers from their families, all of whom have seen blood with the snake people on the battlefield. Hong Fan was slightly surprised. Shen Hong was originally his teammate, and they had climbed Hongzhou Mountain together, so they had a deep friendship. Hong Ji was the younger brother of a concubine's family. He joined the team at the same time as Hong Fan. At that time, he shot 3 arrows and hit 3 times, which left a deep impression on him. What are they sent here for? To protect me, Hong Fan asked with a smile. As for protecting you, they are naturally not qualified. Hong Pan also smiled. But usually guarding this Chori mansion, driving away the scoundrels, and protecting your aunt's family is no problem. The 2 chatted and laughed for a while, and finished a whole pot of tea. It was close to noon, and Hong Fan stood up to see Hong Pan out of the study. The courtyard was deep, and the clouds were light and the wind was gentle. The sun shone on the flowers, and the flowers cast shadows. There was no one around. The 2 just walked down the steps side by side, but Hong Pan rushed out a few steps, turned around and knelt on one knee. This is a courtesy that only the clan leader has. Hong Fan has been in Dahua for more than a year, and he has only seen him when Hong Jian issued military orders. Uncle Pan, what are you doing? Hong Fan frowned and stepped forward to help. However, Hong Pan remained motionless and just clasped his hands together. I was ordered to come here today, and I have said too much, but there is one more thing I have to say, he said solemnly. Hong Fan did not help him again, but stepped back and listened respectfully. Brother Fan, not only me, but other uncles and aunts far away in Jinhe also know that you have great ambitions, Hong Pan said word by word, looking directly into his nephew's eyes. But no matter when and where, please put your personal safety first. You must know that you are half the weight of the Jinhe Hong family. Hearing this, Hong Fan was silent for a long time, and nodded heavily. I understand, he stood up and replied. Accepting the gift, in the evening, Hong Fan held a banquet in Chori Mansion. On the one hand, it was to welcome Shen Hong and Hong Ji, and on the other hand, it was to introduce them to Zhan Yuanzi and Bai Jiasi. Unlike the past, this time the dishes were ordered from Xingsheng Tang, so Aunt Liu couldn't resist Hong Fan's opinion and joined the table. Shen Hong still had a bald head and was still generous. He chatted quite well with Zhan Yuanzi. On the contrary, Hong Ji was a little restrained and couldn't treat Hong Fan as a peer. After eating and drinking, Zijing City was already under the moonlight. Hong Fan sent Hong Pan back and went back to the martial arts field to practice sand control for an hour. After taking a shower at the well, he went back to the house along the side garden, but saw a man sitting alone in the pavilion, throwing fish food into the pond. Jiasi, why do you have so much leisure today? Hong Fan called out and walked into the pavilion. The thousands of reds in the water suddenly dispersed. Actually, I don't have any leisure, but there are some things I haven't figured out yet. Bai Jiasi shook his head. Hong Fan sat down in the pavilion. After a moment of silence, the koi gathered on the water again, fighting for the remaining floating food. Today at Shenxi, 3 p.m., I went to Mingayu Tower and met Miss Hongli, Bai Jiasi suddenly said. A small quiet room, a table of snacks, a pot of pear blossom white new wine, and it took no more than an hour in total. I also went there at the cheapest time of the day, and still spent 6 taels of silver. As he said this, his smile bloomed for a moment, and soon disappeared. Looking at you like this, did the conversation go badly? Hong Fan asked. It was good originally, Bai Jiasi replied. But I couldn't help asking the same question again. You mean, why does she want to be in Waren? Hong Fan came back to his senses and continued. Yes, Bai Jiasi nodded and looked at Hong Fan. I only found out today that the 3 singing girls on the Kakao festival were all virgins, because ordinary singing girls sell their looks, while Waren sell their elegance. No wonder she wants to be in Waren. Hong Fan suddenly realized. Yes, if you become in Waren, you don't have to accept customers casually, Bai Jiasi said in a faint voice. But there are thousands of girls in the red light districts of Zijing. Everyone wants to be in Waren. But there is only one a year. When he said this, he turned his head and sneered. It seemed that he was laughing at Huang Li, but also seemed to be laughing at others. The laughter faded, and the garden became even quieter. Hong Fan, how many years have you practiced martial arts? Bai Jiasi suddenly asked. Almost 4 years, Hong Fan replied. I have been here for 6 years. Bai Jiasi lowered his head. I used to practice in the spirit dog sect without thinking about anything, but recently, I often have a thought, why do I practice martial arts? Hong Fan did not speak again. He could tell that Bai Jiasi did not need others to answer. The wind passed through his fingertips, slightly cold. The two sat there in silence. Until the school of fish dispersed. Until the moon rose in the sky. Until the garden was filled with rustling sounds, like waves startling the night. It's autumn, Bai Jiasi said softly. Hong Fan stood up and looked back. Where he looked, he saw the endless summer that bloomed all over the garden and seemed to be blooming forever, slowly withering. The fragrant garden is now immersed in the moon. The summer flowers shed tears on the blue and marry into the west wind. P.S. There is only one chapter today. Bai Jiasi is a microcosm of the martial artists of Dahua. I wrote about him in some words to express something. But the second half of the chapter is too online after all. I thought about it for a long time, but I didn't delete it in the end. In addition, the first order was 580 when it was launched, and today the average order has exceeded 3,000. It is a small milestone. Chapter 246, The Wind Over the Pavilion. The autumnal equinox of the 28th year of Zhang was on August 14th. This day divided autumn equally, with yin and yang being half and half, and day and night being equal in length. That night, the neighbors of the 6th Cross Street and King Lian Hutong heard thunder for half the night. Real thunder. When it was almost dawn, the thunder began to subside. The autumn chill replaced the summer heat. The next day was August 15th. This was not considered a day in Jinhai City. On this day last year, Hong Fan and his team were ambushed by He Shangfei. He and Bentley returned to the city exhausted and fell asleep almost as soon as they touched the pillow at night. As for the moonlight, maybe I saw it then, but I can't remember it now. But in Zhejiang City, August 15th is a serious festival for worshipping the moon and reuniting. Chori Mansion also followed the local customs. Aunt Liu personally took charge of the cooking and started preparing the dishes in the morning. A round table with a diameter of 3 meters, which was not usually used, was set up in the main hall. Hong Fan sat at the head of the table, and Zhan Yuanzi, Bai Jiasi, Tang Dajian, and Shen Hong and 10 others sat in the full seat. Hand-pulled mutton, gourd chicken, braised catfish. It was a hearty meal, and Shen Hong's head was covered with oil. When the banquet ended, it was only 2:30 p.m. Hong Fan went to Hong Pan's house and sat for a while, and exchanged holiday greetings with Hong Zhe, Hong Qing and others. When he came back, he passed the threshold and saw 2 figures sitting on the roof. They were Zhan Yuanzi and Bai Jiasi. You two are good at finding a private seat. He jumped onto the roof lightly and squeezed in between his teammates to sit down. Then he looked up and saw the full moon of the Mid-Autumn Festival just a few feet away. Today's moon is the size of a disc, with a few thin and narrow clouds like a silk scarf. The moonlight is not as cold as usual, but instead has a light golden glow. The 3 of them admired the moon for a while. It was beautiful, but it was still a little bit lacking. The moon festival in Zhejiang emphasizes reunion, Zhan Yuanzi pondered. On a day like this, our second team didn't gather together, and I always feel that it's not enough. That's the truth, Bai Jiasi replied. But we had invited Ci and the others before, so they didn't want to come. There is a reason why they didn't want to come for dinner, Hong Fan continued. Ci is a 7th rank official. She thought that if she came, my aunt and Lao Tang would definitely not want to join the table. This is one reason. In addition, Shen Hong and Hong Ji don't know them at all. It's inevitable that it will be awkward to have a reunion dinner together on the Moon Festival, Bai Jiasi suddenly realized. So, how about we play another game tonight, Zhan Yuanzi suddenly suggested. I know there is a Lianhu Pavilion 10 miles east of the city. It faces the Pinghu and distant mountains, and the scenery is unique. He looked at Hong Fan with interest. Can it work? Bai Jiasi asked. On weekdays, the team leaders are confined to their homes at night. It's already the time of the dog days. Will they come out? Ci probably won't, Hong Fan smiled and replied. But today is a different season. With the help of the full moon in the sky, Ruai should be able to come. He stood up. The 4 of us are not enough. Why don't I send someone to call Master Lu Yun? Shi Yuanwei and the others to go to the Lianhu Pavilion together, Hong Fan suggested. That couldn't be better, Zhang Yuanzi responded immediately. It's a rare good night, a good moon, and good partners. I have to bring my painting supplies, he said as he jumped along the roof ridge and landed back in his yard in just a few steps. An hour later, 10 miles east of the city, the official road was deserted. Only under a large pavilion on the side of the road, a dozen people gathered, and their voices and laughter startled the night. Plates of meat and vegetable delicacies were taken out of Hong Fan's lunchboxes. They were half cold, but after the heat passed, they were hot again. The dishes were ordered from Xingsheng Hall. There were also a few mooncakes on the table, with egg yolk filling and jujube paste filling. Under the stone table, there were more osmanthus wine, 8 jars in total. Shi Yuanwei picked up the first jar and patted off the mud seal. There was a splash, the cup was covered with wine foam, and the fragrance of wine spread in the wind. On the Moon Festival, the first cup should be for the moon. Hong Fan took a cup and raised it in his hand. Everyone, drink up. After one round, it was considered the beginning of the feast. There were not enough chairs, so everyone could only sit by the railings on all sides, and the table seemed very far away. So Hong Fan simply gave up his chopsticks and directly used his true energy to eat in the air. Everyone followed suit. For a moment, politeness was swept away, but passion came up. Brother Lu, she has something I want to ask you for a long time. Shi Yuanwei brought the wine and walked around the table. Please go ahead. Master Lu Yun saw that he was serious and spoke in a stern voice. Did you go to see the courtesan of Mingyu Tower later? Shi Yuanwei asked in a low voice. As soon as these words came out, the pavilion was quiet inside and outside, attracting many pairs of eyes. Why do you ask this all of a sudden? Master Lu Yun was a little embarrassed. Could it be that you all know about this? He asked with difficulty. Of course. On the second day of the Cacao Festival, the first thing Yi Xinghuo said to me was, do you know about last night's news? Shi Yuanwei replied. You have been staying at home for a while, so you don't know that people have come up with a proverb about this matter. Master Lu Yun knew something was wrong when he heard this. But he couldn't help asking, what's the proverb? I know. LV Sanlang snatched the embroidered ball. Not a penny was spared. Wu Ruai answered first. Master Lu Yun's face darkened. Brother Hong is more famous than you. Shi Yuanwei seemed to comfort him. It is said that everyone who goes to Mingyu Tower will go to the waterside stage to see the knife marks left on the floor when he cut a broken iron. That sand knife, I still remember it clearly and will never forget it in my life. Master Lu Yun echoed in a serious tone, and was about to change the subject when he was interrupted again. So did you go to Mingyu Tower later? Turning around, it was Wu Ruai who was blinking. Master Lu Yun couldn't get angry, so he could only shake his head. How could you be so ungrateful? This is such a pity. Shi Yuanwei sighed mischievously, and was grabbed when he wanted to leave with his cup in his hand. Brother Shi, don't leave. We have good food and good wine tonight. Can we play a few rounds of drinking orders? Master Lu Yun said angrily. Drinking orders are a popular drinking game in Dahua. At the beginning, one person must be selected as the order officer, who can either give a poem or a couplet, and the others can improvise to continue. If they can't continue, they will be fined. Master Lu Yun, Yuan Zusong, and Yan Yulin are all masters of this. Wu Ruai and Zhang Yuanzi can still struggle, but the third team can only fumble. After a few rounds, Shi Yuanwei was deliberately targeted. At first, he blushed and hesitated, but in the end he simply gave up. No matter what kind of drinking order he came, it was nothing more than a bowl and a toast. Soon, the first jar of osmanthus wine was empty. Outside the pavilion, the moon sat in the sky, and the lake met the autumn grass. Hong Fan leaned against the pavilion pillar, drank a lot of wine, but smiled even more. In his 2 lives, he had read thousands of poems about moonlit nights. But the sum of countless famous poems could not compare to the breeze passing through the pavilion at this moment. P.S. Wow, my mind is still empty. After struggling for a day, I didn't write much, but I was already numb. Chapter 247 Untitled. It was past midnight, but the wine was not yet drunk. Shi Yuanwei started the discussion, and everyone started arguing about the fastest things in the world. From hawks to arrows, from strong winds to thunder, the discussion was difficult to reach a conclusion. The wine was getting stronger. Under the octagonal leaves, everyone's chat became random. Zhang Yuanzi put down his wine cup, set up a drawing board outside the pavilion, ground ink, and looked at the bright moon carefully. Hong Fan watched with him for a while, and when he saw that he didn't pick up the pen, he found a higher rock a little further away to sit on. Looking at the blurred mountains and forests in the distance, he was in a daze for a rare time. A tall figure approached. It was Shi Yuanwei. "Where are you from, Brother Shi?" Hong Fan asked leisurely without turning his head. "From where I came from," Shi Yuanwei answered instinctively, and then sat down cross-legged on the side with a bit of resentment. There was no conversation for a long time. "Why are you so fussy?" Hong Fan suddenly laughed. "Brother Shi, do you want to talk to me?" He turned his head and asked. "Nothing to say." Shi Yuanwei turned his eyes away unconsciously when he was looked at by him and replied. But he stopped himself halfway through his words. "I do have something to say." He swallowed his saliva and mustered up the courage to look at Hong Fan. "Or it's something I shouldn't ask, Brother Hong. I have always wanted to ask you since I came back from Kifeng Mountain. Why is your instant step so fast? The step of cutting and chewing bones. Even ordinary innate masters can't catch up with you." As soon as he said this, Shi Yuanwei's face flushed red. Asking about other people's killing methods is considered a taboo in Dahua. "So this is it." Hong Fan smiled and didn't care. "One is to step on the ground with your feet, and the other is the help of the life star, but these two are secondary. The most important thing is that I restrained the key in the sand, compressed it to the limit and released it all at once to create a strong wind." Shi Yuanwei was stunned when he heard this. "So it's the power of the wind." Sure enough, the wind is the fastest in the world, he sighed in despair. After speaking, Shi Yuanwei looked up at the night sky and raised his hands to make a fist. The mixed innate spiritual energy between heaven and earth was slightly disturbed. However, he finally put down his hand in frustration. Hong Fan seemed to realize something. "Brother Shi is wrong. Wind is far from being the fastest in the world," he said with a firm tone. Shi Yuanwei looked over immediately. "There is a strong wind called Bao above the vast ocean. It can destroy everything in its path and cover the sky. It can travel 1,200 miles in an hour," Hong Fan narrated. "But thunder is far faster than wind. It can travel 5,000 miles in an hour." "How do you know?" Shi Yuanwei asked. "Don't worry about it. I just know it," Hong Fan smiled. "And thunder is not fast enough. Faster than thunder is lightning and light." Shi Yuanwei was happy. His nickname was Lightning Flash. "How fast is lightning and light?" he asked. 1/7,200th of an hour. Lightning can travel 600,000 miles, Hong Fan answered in a deep voice. "Incredible." Shi Yuanwei's voice trembled. "How can it be so fast? Even the heavenly saints and martial saints cannot compare." Hong Fan laughed when he heard this. "But electricity and light are not the fastest. What else can be faster?" Shi Yuanwei asked anxiously, losing his usual calmness, like a child. "Of course it's her thoughts," Hong Fan said in a half-truthful tone. "Close your eyes with me. Think of the mountain and the mountain will appear. Think of the moon and the moon will appear. Think of the river and the sea and the river and the sea will appear. Think of the other shore and the other shore will appear." The voice faded away, and both of them opened their eyes. "How can the wind, thunder and lightning you just talked about be faster than our thoughts?" Hong Fan laughed loudly. Shi Yuanwei was infected by it and couldn't help but get excited. "Brother Shi, I have a question too." Hong Fan turned his head and looked at him. "According to the Yanliu Guang of our clan, a warrior in the power realm needs to enter the realm of heaven and man, and needs to sense the innate spiritual energy. To enter the innate realm, he needs to tame the innate spiritual energy. Is that so?" "Indeed," Shi Yuanwei replied seriously. "The Shangxing Dian also says this." At this moment, Hong Fan's face darkened and he suddenly asked, "How can you tame it if you have fear in your heart?" Shi Yuanwei's smile disappeared, and his mind went blank. When he came to his senses, Hong Fan had already walked away with his hands behind his back, and only the long wind pushed the grass waves, galloping all the way to the end of the boundlessness. Stones fell into the lake, creating circles of ripples. The withered reeds were trampled by the long boots, revealing the back of Baijayasi squatting on the stone. "Why are you hiding here alone?" Hong Fan said. "What are you thinking about?" "Thinking about my little half of life," Baijayasi replied, looking back sideways, revealing half of his face. "It wasn't worth thinking about originally, but I've been thinking about it a lot lately." Hong Fan saw him laughing. "What I think about the most is Mingyu Tower during the Cacao Festival," Baijayasi said softly. "When I walked on the white marble steps and encountered Liu Xingxin, When I sat on the third floor and listened to Zhang Wenbo's contempt for the Imperial Guards, Hong Fan stood silently without answering. Bai Jiasi then half turned around. Hong Fan, what was I like in your eyes at that time? He asked loudly. I was full of worries, Hong Fan thought for a moment and replied. Why do you need to use such elegant words between you and me? Bai Jiasi grinned, with a reproachful tone. I'm not full of worries, I'm just afraid. As he said this, a little confusion appeared on his face. I'm not afraid of death. If I was afraid of death, I wouldn't have come to be an Imperial Guard. But when I see those noble families and their mansions, I'm still afraid. Bai Jiasi looked at the lake. The rocks had long since sunk to the bottom, but the waves were still there. I don't know when it started, maybe it was after I left the Spirit Dog sect, or maybe it was after I came to Zijing. I started to be afraid of others looking at me, afraid of those focused eyes. At first I thought it was because I was born poor and my eyes were too shallow, but when I heard you coming just now, I figured it out. It's because I looked down on myself from the bottom of my heart. Hong Fan's breathing was a little heavy, and he wanted to interrupt, but was stopped by a raised hand. Hong Fan, what do you think of my martial arts talent? Bai Jiasi asked. Very good, Hong Fan replied. Not fortune-telling stars, much better than me. If you get a second-grade technique, you should be able to ascend the ladder to heaven and achieve innateness. He made this evaluation sincerely. At the same age of 20, Jingsha had just broken through to the perfect meridian, and was the leader of the second echelon of Jinhe City. Bai Jiasi was the same age, practicing a weaker technique, but he had already reached the perfect 4 meridians realm. Compared with Hong Sheng, he was only one step behind. You should be right, I thought so too, Bai Jiasi sneered. I entered the Spirit Dog sect at the age of 13 and worked as an errand disciple for 2 years before I came into contact with martial arts. At that time, my fellow disciples had just started to practice the small circulation of heaven, wore the same clothes, and ate the same food. Every time they made progress, they couldn't help but imagine which martial arts classics they would switch to in the future, and what nicknames they would take on the Xianjiao list. He looked at the full moon, as if he saw the faces of those who had walked with him for a while. In everyone's eyes, I am the one who is different, Bai Jiasi recalled. Unfortunately, this is just an illusion. Childhood stupidity is a layer of protection, but people will grow up. He raised his head and rubbed his eyes with his hand. There will be a moment when reality will cut a knife, cut my skin, and reveal the dull mediocrity inside, Bai Jiasi said, and turned back suddenly. Hong Fan, to me, you are that knife. Hong Fan's heart was clenched when he heard it. That night, the noble son of the Bai family lost his scalp, and the poor son of the Bai family lost his fantasy. Bai Jiasi's voice was joyful and choked. Until dawn, I figured it out completely. Not everyone can reach the end of martial arts. Not everyone can reach the upper limit of talent. Hong Fan, I don't know when your moment will come. Maybe it will never come, but mine has already come. At this moment, he looked at his teammates calmly and shed hot tears. Hong Fan forced himself not to turn away, and tried his best to comfort him. But before he opened his mouth, Bai Jiasi had wiped away his tears and turned back. Don't worry about me. He leaned back on the rock with both hands, looking at the Milky Way in the lake and the fragrant grass on the river. What bothers me is not my weakness. I have always looked down on myself because I am always the one who drags others down, dragging down my parents, my brothers and sisters. Ruai, drag you. Hong Fan finally couldn't hold back when he heard this, and he had to speak no matter what. Everyone, Jiasi, everyone has a process of growth. How can there be shade if the seedlings have not yet grown into trees? His words were rarely scattered. I know, Bai Jiasi replied with relief. But I can't wait any longer. He stood up suddenly, took a sip of wine, brewed it deeply, and then exhaled the turbid air that had been suppressed in his chest for half a lifetime. When a warrior enters the state of unity, he is like a tree that can be embraced by 2 people, which is enough to be a pillar in the courtyard, Bai Jiasi said firmly. It's almost dawn. He threw the wine pot into the lake, turned around and looked at Hong Fan, with a relieved smile on his face. Let's go back to Lianhe Pavilion. It was already the hour of Mao, and the night gradually faded towards the sky. When the two returned to the Kuojiao Pavilion, most of the wine jars were empty. On the painting paper, the water and mountains were already there, and the grass carpet had also taken shape, but only the full moon and the starry sky were not yet completed. Time passed by every second. The brush became more urgent, but it was still too late. Alice, the good night is so fast, I can't catch up. Zhang Yuanzi recognized the facts and lost his temper. It's all because of drinking, he complained angrily. Inside the pavilion, Master Lu Yun, who was leaning against a fence, laughed at this. Today the moon sets, why should we wait until tomorrow? Why blame Du Kang? Today is Mid-Autumn Festival, today's moon is different from the past, Zhang Yuanzi retorted. So what? Master Lu Yun waved his hand drunkenly. If it doesn't work tomorrow, wait until next year. Zhang Yuanzi saw the drunkard look of the people in the pavilion and was too lazy to talk. At this moment, his eyes suddenly lit up. Everyone, it's dawn. Shi Yuanwei, who had been watching the autumn wind for half the night, pointed east with a loud voice. After drinking this, everyone woke up for a few minutes and looked into the distance. In the sky, the sun emerged from the clouds and revealed a corner. All things appeared in the light. The mountains were outlined. The water was shining. The grass by the lake was half dry. There was a layer of forest outside the grass. Hong Fan looked around and saw the autumn leaves like fire, burning all the way to the horizon. It also burned into everyone's heart. So he raised his cup high. Let's drink together, a loud shout shook off the dusk. Everyone was in a clamor, and they opened a new jar of wine and drank it all. The sweet-scented osmanthus wine went down their throats, and the morning sun rose completely. The brilliant golden light passed over the Lianhu Pavilion and spread along the official road to the distance. Under the sunset, Yuan Zusong and Yan Yulin sang the folk songs of Zijing. We are separated in vain, and the dust of horse hooves has already moved outside the door. The sad song is left for drunkenness, and the distant view is unbearable to send it to the sky. On the easel is an unfinished mid-autumn night moon. In front of the easel is Hong Fan, who is holding the shoulders of Zhang Yuanzi and Bai Jiasi. Wu Ruai sat on the steps of the pavilion and clapped his hands until they were red. Who knows who will share the wind and moon tonight, and the sound of the pipa is like a phoenix on the groove. There is nothing in life more affectionate. The river is not deep and the mountain is not heavy. The singing reached the clouds and the laughter became the wind. Last night, they had not finished their wine. Today, they have no end in sight. P.S. The Zijing folk song used the Zhangjian's Mulanhua, Farewell to Sun Gongsu and Anlu, batch tune. Today, 360 suddenly set an automatic screensaver for the computer, and it still used an advertisement. What a bold way to monetize. I couldn't figure out how to set it up for a long time, so I simply uninstalled and restarted, and then found that the detailed outline that Word had modified was not saved. Listen to me, thank you. The connection between the several parts of this chapter lacks foreshadowing. But considering the tone of online articles, I still choose to simplify it as much as possible. The second volume is here in the middle stage, and Hong Fan has almost accumulated all the cards he should have. The rest is the second half. Chapter 248 Jun's Favor. More than half a month later. It was September 11th, the 28th year of Zheng. In the morning, Aunt Liu made hand-rolled noodles with 2 eggs in them. Hong Fan ate every strand of noodles and considered it his birthday. After breakfast, he cleaned up the study as usual. A stack of unfinished manuscripts was put into the cabinet after drying. A short sword with a silver blade and bright yellow sword guard was placed on the highest shelf of the bookshelf. This sword is called Jun and Zhang, ranked 3rd, and marked with 60 points of military merit in the Military Merit Pavilion. On the 7th day after the Mid-Autumn Festival, Shi Yuanwei broke through to the innate realm after 3 years of interaction between heaven and man. According to the system of this Hangwu Academy, he should go to Shenjing to serve as the Purple Ribbon World Rider and report directly to Guan Kemei. As for the replacement of the Yuanxi part of the Shangxing Dian, the two will also make separate contracts. Therefore, Shi Yuanwei exchanged the famous sword Jun and Zhang 10 days ago and gave it to Hong Fan. The short sword, calligraphy and painting, all returned to their respective owners. Hong Fan put on his outer robe, put on his hairpin and a crown, and then he heard footsteps outside the door. It was Shen Hong. Second young master, Mr. Gong, who visited yesterday, has arrived, and his carriage is parked at the front door. He bowed slightly and reported. Hong Fan nodded and strode out. The carriage parked outside Choi Mansion was the same one that had been to Jinhei City. It was dark black, with a wide carriage and jade inlaid on the corners. However, although the carriage was as gorgeous as before, the 2 horses pulling the carriage were no longer mixed race. Gong Heng and others were waiting beside the carriage and got in with Hong Fan. The whip cracked. The carriage slowly drove to the north of East City. Beside the low table, an elder and a younger man sat cross-legged opposite each other. Half a year later, Guangheng still looked the same as before with fair skin and long flowing beard. But there was a little tension in his pair of dark eyes. "Don't worry, Uncle Guang," Hong Fan said with a smile. "Duke Zhuang is kind-hearted. Since he has already said something, he will not change his mind easily. Since he is willing to see you again today, the matter is already 80% settled." Hearing this, Guangheng's expression eased a little. "It is all thanks to my nephew's mediation," he thanked him. "The Gong family will never forget this favor. I promised you this in Jinhei," Hong Fan replied, sipping his tea. "The Hong family is in Jinhei and the Guang family is in Tongguang, so we are two families in two cities, but since we came to Zhaijing, we are half fellow townsmen." "That's the truth," Guangheng replied, adding more tea. "Speaking of which, has your uncle continued to work hard in the south in the past 6 months?" Hong Fan asked. "Of course he has," Guangheng replied, sighing. "However, given the situation in Huaiyang, how can we use Chalcedony? There have been 3 major wind disasters this spring alone, and several waterspouts along the Yao River. Natural disasters continue, not to mention man-made disasters." He gritted his teeth as he spoke. "The king of Huaiyang has been touring the 4 borders since the beginning of the year. Every time he enters or leaves a city, he lays out a 10-mile silk carpet. And the trees on both sides of the road are decorated with colorful satin to show his luxury. Before I came to Zhaijing, I heard that there was a new assignment, saying that they would build a big carriage and rob people everywhere. It has come to this." Hong Fan's face changed when he heard this. "Why not?" Guangheng sneered. "My dear nephew, you don't know that now even bandits can't stay in Huaiyang, let alone common people." This immediately reminded Hong Fan of chewing bones. The carriage was bumpy, and soon they arrived at the weaponry bureau. The talks went more smoothly than expected. With Hong Fan present, Zhuang Liren only casually asked about the general situation of Tongguang Jadeite, and then decided on the cooperation items. Compared with the introduction to optics half a month ago, the procurement of raw materials was a trivial matter for him. After that, the 3 of them had lunch together. When they left after lunch, Guangheng's eyes were no longer nervous, and his face was already full of rosy light. Back in the study of the chief supervisor, Hong Fan answered some questions about the calculation problems of Gaussian optics before. Just as he was about to leave, Zhuang Liren waved his hand to keep him. "I have another group of guests this afternoon," he smiled. "If you don't have anything urgent, why don't you join me in receiving them, Mr. Zhuang wants me to accompany the guests." Hong Fan's thoughts turned slightly, and he had a guess. "Does the visitor know me?" "That's right," Zhuang Liren replied, not keeping the secret. "This time, the guests are from the Shura sect, and the leader is Yuan Lingsu, the leader of the 7th-generation disciples. If it weren't for the matter of the head of the Gong family, I would have sent someone to invite you over. How is it such a coincidence?" Hong Fan was a little surprised. "Does the state have cooperation with the Shura sect?" "Not originally," Zhuang Liren shook his head. "But now we have Cheyenne Bank. The production of the He family's Zisudan was a fixed number, but now it has tripled. Naturally, many people are trying to find out the reason. Since the state has taken the shares of Cheyenne Bank, the He family is under pressure. Can they push the matter to me?" he joked. When Hong Fan heard this, he suddenly realized. The Shura sect is one of the 4 major sects in the world, and it is also the leading force in Liangzhou in the manufacture of martial arts pills, especially in the field of rotating cultivation techniques. The wheel pill is almost the best choice. It is inevitable that they are interested in technologies such as cyclonic separation. Similarly, this incident also proves the importance of his preparations in advance. If the instrument production supervisor had not participated, I am afraid that once Yuan Lingsu came to the door, the He family would have to reveal Hong Fan's existence. "Since we are going to talk about Cheyenne Bank today, what identity should I use to meet them?" Hong Fan asked further. "Of course not as a member of Cheyenne Hexing. Just say that you are my beloved nephew," Zhuang Liren replied. He knew that Hong Fan had agreed. "I heard that when you first opened the sect, you rejected Yuan Lingsu's face. Today I am here. It is not difficult to expose this matter," Zhuang Liren said his considerations. "The Shura sect generally abides by the rules. If we can cooperate in the future, tell them your role. Once they guarantee you, you can dominate the vast Liangzhou." Zhuang Liren smiled. Hong Fan nodded silently, his heart warmed slightly. He could hear that the other party was wholeheartedly planning for him. After a while, On the inn came out to report that the guests of the Shura sect had arrived. Zhuang Liren and Hong Fan went out to greet them. Outside the cement road, a group of people were led over. The leader was Yuan Lingsu. She was wearing a purple martial arts uniform, with vigorous steps and a cheerful demeanor. But the river-shaped pattern between her eyebrows seemed to be getting deeper. Why bother Mr. Zhuang to go out and greet you? Isn't that embarrassing for the juniors? Yuan Lingsu bowed from a distance and smiled. You are now promoted to the head of the Shura sect's foreign affairs. How can you not be more respectful? Zhuang Liren also said with a smile. Yuan Lingsu turned his eyes and looked at the second person accompanying him. Is this Mr. Hong, Senior Yuan? Long time no see. Hong Fan bowed. At this time, another person came out from behind Yuan Lingsu. He was skinny, wearing a Taoist hairpin, and his belt was tied casually, ready to fall off at any time. Who else could it be but the little Dao Emperor Chu Yi? Chapter 249 Handsome. The sky was bright and clear, and the autumn air was crisp. The wind was just right, neither too hot nor too cold. But when Hong Fan saw this world-famous little Dao Emperor, for some reason, he had a bad feeling. Chu Lui's face also became serious. Did you two make an appointment? He glanced at Hong Fan, his two short eyebrows knitted tightly, as if he understood something, and then looked at Yuan Lingsu. I understand, senior sister. Is this why you didn't let me come? The voice was cold, with a hint of autumn. The atmosphere in the room turned cold. Yuan Lingsu's jaw muscles tightened, and the Sichuan-shaped wrinkles between her eyebrows wrinkled deeper. Hong Fan opened his mouth and closed it again. Who made an appointment with whom? What do you understand now? He wanted to explain, but he didn't know what to explain. Chu Lei put his hands behind his back, and wanted to speak, but was slapped on the back of his head, making a crisp pop sound. He turned back and glared at Yuan Lingsu, and saw a half-inch green light in the latter's eyes. He knew that she was really angry, so he was forced to retreat. So young Master Chu is here too, what a rare guest. Zhuang Liren bowed and smiled, speaking to help. Greetings, Lord Zhuang. Chu Lei casually put his hands together as a return gesture. I'm really sorry, I didn't want my junior brother to come with me. Yuan Lingsu forced a smile from the corners of her mouth and explained. But I didn't agree to him, and this guy stayed at my door and refused to leave. There was really nothing I could do. The group returned to the reception room. Chu Lei picked a side chair and sat down, and put one of his good legs under the other knee. Yuan Lingsu turned her head slightly, excluding the figure of her good junior brother from her peripheral vision. The shaped lines on her face immediately became 3 points lighter. After a few simple greetings, the topic turned to the production of the marrow cleansing pill. Zhuang Liren responded to everything he said, without any reservations. This made Yuan Lingsu a little surprised at the importance of Hong Fan. However, before the meeting was halfway through, Chu Lei felt bored and could not sit still, looking around. Senior sister, I feel like I am not needed here. It's rare for me to come down the mountain, so I want to go out for a walk. He found a topic to change and asked. At this moment, Yuan Lingsu was somewhat happy. You feel right, just go. She waved her hand towards the door, with 7 parts of disgust and 3 parts of relief. Hong Fan, it's rare for young Master Chu to come here. How about you be a guest? Zhuang Liren asked when he saw Chu Lei stand up. The topic of both parties gradually touched the core, and putting Hong Fan here would inevitably attract some attention. The latter knew what he meant, and left the table together. After going out of the door and entering the yard, Chu Lei said goodbye to his senior sister. Like a bird entering the forest and a fish entering the water, even his breathing became 3 times louder. Hong Fan, my senior sister is coming here today. Did she really not inform you in advance? He suddenly whispered when he saw Hong Fan following. Of course not. I just happened to come here for something. Lord Zhuang knew that I knew you, so he asked me to keep him company, Hong Fan replied. Chu Lei was skeptical. Then let me tell you something. His eyes became lively. After you left Xiangping Mountain, senior sister Yuan mentioned you. She said that compared to you, the other disciples in Shura sect look like rotten fish and shrimp. Hong Fan paused. He rarely didn't know how to respond. At this moment, a whistling sound came from the courtyard. Along with the wind came a sharp voice of anger. Chu Lei, Hong Fan caught a glimpse of a black shadow that broke through the window glass and shot over like lightning, hitting Chu Lei's arm in half, and then shattered on the bluestone floor tiles. It was a charcoal pencil. Where are the other disciples? I mean you, saying that you, Chu Lei, look like rotten fish and shrimp. 2 more sentences followed. Furious, why are you so heavy-handed? Are all the people in Shura sect crazy? An idea came to Hong Fan's mind, and he lost most of his confidence in future cooperation. As he was thinking, he saw that Chuloy's wound had hardly bled, and it was glowing green again. The granulations silently sprang up, and the wound was restored to its original state in the blink of an eye. Great Dahua 10 classics, so domineering. Hong Fan's eyes narrowed slightly, and when he was surprised, he was grabbed by Chuloy's arm and pulled out. Oh no, we made our senior sister angry. Let's go. Chuloy frowned and said solemnly. He used his body skills to lead people out of the yard in a blink of an eye, and then turned a corner before slowing down slightly. At this time, Hong Fan was still thinking about the we in the previous sentence. Oh, I'm sorry, my senior sister does have a bad temper, please forgive me. Chuloy looked back at the yard, shook his head and sighed. This was the third time Hong Fan wanted to say something but stopped. I do sometimes misunderstand people. Chuloy tightened his half-hanging belt and scratched the itchy spot on his side. But you saw it this time. It was indeed my senior sister's fault. Everyone with eyes in Xiangping Mountain knows that I, Chuloy, look quite handsome. He pointed at his face. If you say I look ugly, isn't that what you are talking about? Most of the Shura sect, you have to be picky about words. Hong Fan kept silent and followed. While silently reciting the Heart Sutra, he looked at this young warrior who was about to enter the top 20 of the Xianjiao list. His appearance was indeed different from his own, but his facial features were regular and his skin was healthy and smooth, so it was true that he was handsome. But with the sloppy clothes and the willful and firm eyes, he was reminded of an ancient dog breed in his previous life. Huskies often bring a lot of problems. But it's hard to say that it's the husky's problem. After all, there are so many kinds of dogs, but some people insist on raising them, which is naturally a problem of people. The stone lion holding a flame and stepping on a gear was left behind. There were many pedestrians on the street. The two walked along the high green wall. Brother Chu, Zijing City is not small, where do you want to go? Hong Fan cut off his distracting thoughts, regrouped, and asked. I want to go to the brothel, Chuloy replied without hesitation. The loud voice and the upright tone instantly attracted many eyes around. Hong Fan immediately regretted it and deeply reflected on his casual question just now. I heard from my junior brother that Wangjiang Lane is very famous. There is a Mingayu tower inside, and the girls are particularly beautiful. Chuloy said seriously. I am so handsome, naturally I want to play with beautiful girls, so I want to go to Mingayu Tower. Hong Fan nodded randomly. Sure enough, heroes think alike. Then let's go to the brothel together, Chuloy said happily. More eyes gathered. Hong Fan shook his head randomly. Seeing Chuloy's situation, he slapped his forehead suddenly, and seemed to remember something. I can go to Mingayu Tower by myself, he apologized. Hong Fan breathed a sigh of relief. But I have no money, Chuloy added. Hong Fan was numb. Then he saw Chuloy spread his palm towards him. Lend me 1,000 taels, a statement. A statement with confidence. Hong Fan hesitated for a moment. It's not a matter of money. It's already September, and the first dividend of Xi'an Bank has been paid out. Hong Fan has always been utilitarian in his dealings with people, and he also attaches great importance to expanding his network. The geniuses on the list and the core disciples of the 4 major sects should have been his targets for friendship without a doubt. If it were someone else, he would have lent the 1,000 taels without hesitation. But Chuloy is a bit of a dog. Chapter 250 Home. After a moment's hesitation, Hong Fan still planned to borrow the 1,000 taels. Zijing is the foundation of Hong Fan's future development. And in Liangzhou, it is difficult to bypass the influence of Shura sect to make anything bigger. A mere 1,000 taels, even if Chuloy refuses to pay, he can only go to Yuan Lingsu. Thinking of this, Hong Fan has a deeper understanding of the depth of the river pattern between Yuan's eyebrows. I have the money, but 1,000 taels is too much, and I don't have it on me, Hong Fan said. Come home with me, I'll get the money for you and write you an IOU. A moment later, in Chori Mansion. There was a broken word on the desk in the study that looked like it was scratched by a chicken claw. That was the IOU left by Chuloy at Hong Fan's request. After sending this little plague out away, Hong Fan regained his peace and took out the monthly report from Jinhei last month and read it carefully by himself. Before he finished reading, Bai Jiasi came to the door again. He actually came to borrow money as well. I want to borrow 500 taels of silver, Pay it back in 2 years, and the annual interest is 10%, Bai Jiasi said in one go. What are you borrowing so much for? Hong Fan asked. I want to redeem Hongli, Bai Jiasi replied. When Hong Fan heard this, the bailing screen and the gaze on the day of the Cacao festival came to his mind. He immediately stood up and took the silver note for 500 taels. Brothers should settle accounts clearly, the principal must be paid back, and the interest can be waived. The silver note was pushed over. The interest cannot be waived, Bai Jiasi shook his head. Calculated based on 10% annual interest, he insisted, and only took the silver note after seeing Hong Fan nod in agreement. Then Bai Jiasi carefully wrote the IOU, with the terms and conditions, principal and interest clearly stated. This money was originally nothing to Hong Fan. But seeing his teammates' particularly serious look, he couldn't help but tease. 500 taels in 2 years, it's not easy to save. The annual income of a Guantong realm person usually does not exceed 100 taels, and the cultivation level of the Hunren realm is about 4 or 5 times higher. Becoming a guardian of a gang or a guest of a big family is the most common employment path. A lot of money, not much work, but it is inevitable to show up and fight with others. In addition, you can also lead a team to escort and open a door to accept disciples. However, as a Tiki, you can't do these jobs. It's not difficult, Bai Jiasi smiled. I was originally a part-time worker in Behuapo, and I will change to full-time in the future. I can earn a little 100 taels a year. I can also get some subsidies from the missions, and Hongli's needlework skills are also good. At worst, it will be enough to lose some military merits, and I can also send some extra money home, he said it very calmly. Hong Fan frowned when he heard it. This only counts the income, not the output. What about the expenses for the elixir you use for cultivation? He asked. Not for the time being, Bai Jiasi replied casually. When Hong Fan heard this, he immediately understood what Bai Jiasi said at the Mid-Autumn Festival. A tree that can be hugged by 2 people is enough to be a pillar in the courtyard. The Tiki still needs to work hard. If you can hold on for another 5 years, you might be able to get the Martial Tribulation Divine Mark Code, Bai Jiasi added. It doesn't mean that I have given up martial arts. I just understand that the road is long and difficult, so I am no longer in a hurry for success. Maybe I am destined to be a late bloomer, he laughed. Hong Fan had no choice but to nod. He watched in silence as Bai Jiasi left the IOU and walked away quickly with the 500 taels of silver. As for the remaining words he wanted to say but didn't know whether he should say them or not, he swallowed them all by himself in the end. That night, the guards at the gate of Chowri Mansion changed shifts. As usual, Shen Hong and Hong Ji took people to Hong Pan's mansion to solve the meal. In the main hall, Hong Fan had dinner with his 2 teammates. There was a large pot of beef on the table, which was freshly braised by Aunt Liu using King Bay beef. Zhan Yuanzi was particularly happy. Bai Jiasi was also very happy, but for a different reason. This afternoon, I went to Mingayu Tower to do some work. He chewed a piece of beef and smiled cheerfully. Guess who I met? Neither Hong Fan nor Zhan Yuanzi wanted to guess. The former knew the answer, while the latter felt that it was impossible to guess. I met Chului, Little Dao Emperor Chului. Bai Jiasi swallowed the beef and revealed the answer. Little Dao Emperor also visited the brothel. Zhan Yuanzi was surprised. I was also surprised at the time, Bai Jiasi said vividly. I was waiting in the hall at that time, and saw him swaggering in from the door, a hairpin, a green and blue wide robe, a belt tied diagonally, a half-open chest, and 1,000 lying silver note in his hand. Don't say, the Xianjiao on the list is really handsome and cool. Zhan Yuanzi was listening carefully, but Hong Fan couldn't help but spit out a few grains of rice. Zhan and Bai cast inquiring eyes. It's okay, I choked. Hong Fan waved his hand to show that he was fine. What happened next? Zhan Yuanzi asked. After entering, he introduced himself. Bai Jiasi continued, not even having time to eat the beef. Xianpeng Mountain Chului, serve me the best wine and call the most beautiful girl. Oh, you haven't seen the enthusiasm in Mingayu Tower, he sneered. The old procuress was full of the glory of the humble house, and immediately left me aside. She was simply a changed face. Later, even Feng Su came out on her own initiative. At this point, Bai Jiasi realized that Hong Fan and Zhan Yuanzi had already finished half a bowl of beef, and hurried to join the battle. Did Feng Su charm the little Dao Emperor? Zhan Yuanzi asked curiously while grabbing the meat. You asked a good question. Bai Jiasi slapped the table. You don't know what Chului said after he met the courtesan. What did he say? Hong Fan asked, with a bad premonition in his heart. Chuli actually said that he was very disappointed. Bai Jiasi lowered his voice, shook his head and sighed, performing the melancholy he saw in the afternoon. The next sentence he said was, "You are just a courtesan, you look about the same as a buddy like me." He couldn't help it anymore and burst into laughter. Zhan Yuanzi also laughed out loud. Only Hong Fan's face darkened, and he kept showing off the beef. After a while, Bai Jiasi suddenly saw that the beef bowl was empty, and he felt a little sad, so he stopped smiling. Anyway, Feng Su was so angry that he stormed out on the spot. He added, "Then there were some nonsense. What about he originally got a friend to come together, but his friend has a bad kidney and can't go to the brothel, which is a pity." Hong Fan was stunned when he heard this, and his face became even darker. After hearing this, he realized what Chu Loi meant by slapping his forehead in the afternoon. They ate and talked while eating, and the meal was finished in half an hour. When the banquet was about to end, Bai Jiasi suddenly became serious. "I have something to tell you," he paused. "Today at Mingyu Tower, I have already settled the matter of Hongli. Next time, you just need to bring money over to get the contract of sale and be sold out of slavery. After that, I plan to move out. I have actually been looking at houses in the south of the city these days. I chose a small house with 2 entrances. We will live together." He blushed a little when he said this. Hong Fan suddenly understood. He had been wondering why Bai Jiasi wanted 500 taels to redeem Hongli. Even in Mingyu Tower, such a good-looking but unreputable prostitute would only cost 200 or 300 strings of cash at most. But he didn't expect that Bai Jiasi had plans to buy a house in Zijing. Zhan Yuanzi was a little reluctant. They had lived together for almost 3 months, and it was generally easy and happy. "Is it too hard?" Hong Fan asked. Bai Jiasi shook his head. Hongli was sold to Mingyu Tower at the age of 7, and she has always dreamed of having her own home. "I want to fulfill her wish." The words were firm, as if he had changed into a different person. With that, Hong and Zhan had nothing else to say. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.